minutes afterwards or first?
They're going to come in on right at 6:30, presentation? Okay,
Well, I don't know.
thank you.
You're on.
He's in. Okay, so he's out.
Okay, then what I'll do, we'll just table it.
Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Farmington School Board meeting. Would you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I think we do have public participation.
Okay. So we do have some, we're going to open up to public participation. We also have a number, I think, on our Google Meet screen for people who wants to call in.
We'll be with you in just a minute, Joe.
And just for the record, Josh Whitehouse will be excused from the meeting, was not able to attend tonight. We have Joel online and Stan from the board, along with some staff. So at this point, I'll open it up to public participation.
Right next to the hand sanitizer.
Of course. So that's what all right, so my name is Jelana Stevens, and I am the class president of 2020. And I am here due to the whole COVID-19 outbreak, obviously. And our senior year is not going as most of us planned it.
Yep.
And I've been getting a lot of text messages from my classmates asking me like what's gonna happen now, and I'm here asking for us to have a graduation ceremony, even if it's in July, August. Just keep pushing it back until we can finally have one. I know there has been some talk of doing different celebrations on the Facebook page, such as a parade, walking the Tiger Trail one last time, decorating different buildings to show their support, and I'm very grateful for that. But my class advisor, Mr. Shagnon, ended up sending out an email to every single one of my classmates, and 100% of them said that they want a graduation still. And we have a senior banquet on May 4th. Still, we have not pushed that back yet, and we are still hoping that we can have that when the state reopens, but obviously with the whole COVID-19 outbreak, we don't know when the governor is going to open everything back up. But what I'm asking is, when he does decide to open the state back up, can we still have a graduation ceremony? Because we want something that has meant a lot to us for the last 12 years.
Ruth Ellen, you want to start?
Well, to let you know that we're planning to, or at least I'm planning to meet with you guys tomorrow. I don't know if you knew that. And certainly don't want to do anything that you aren't wanting, and want to make sure that we can say yes as much as possible. You know, right now, if I had a crystal ball and could tell you the timing, I could solve our budget problems like that.
Yes, me too.
But certainly more than willing to work with you guys and see what's going to be possible. And I just, I wanted to meet with you guys so that I knew what you were thinking, so that you don't fall in love with something that I can't say yes to, but so far that doesn't seem to have happened. Okay. So
yeah, just most of us are thinking
Right.
graduation is what our hearts are all set on, but are we gonna get it?
Tim?
I think the students' input is phenomenal. You guys are the ones that worked for it, and you guys should get whatever we can provide for you. Question I have is, we don't know when this is going to end. Do you know within your senior class if there's people scheduled to enlist and go away in the military, or people that are going out of state for colleges, roughly what those dates would be?
I know that most colleges start on August 28th. That's when most students go in, but I do know that if you are playing a fall sport, if you're going in for ROTC, I know that they go in earlier, maybe 1 to 2 weeks earlier than everyone, but I can definitely find out that information.
So one of the things that I would suggest is your Plan A, which is your ultimate graduation that you guys want. And if that can't happen, maybe a Plan B. Just so that everybody in the class is included. If somebody enlists in the military and they're going away, or somebody's going away to college and they got to leave a month earlier to to get an apartment or something like that, you know, have your plan A, which is your ultimate, and your plan B, well, if we can't do this, then we'll go to
And maybe
this.
it's something that if we had someone who was going to leave earlier, we could do a video piece and we could stitch them in.
Yes.
So that they're still included in the larger
Yep.
ceremony.
I do know
So-
that a school in Mass, I believe, I saw on the news that they are still technically doing a graduation, but they're doing a videotaping of each student going and grabbing their diploma
And then
with-
stitching it together.
Exactly, and then they're showing it on the actual graduation date, and that is also an idea that's been tossed around, talked about. Another idea that we've had is the whole parade thing. That's if we can't get anything else. So I do know
That's like your
that-
plans Y and Z,
It's
right?
like,
Okay.
if we really can't get anything else, like a ceremony or anything, that's what it would be. And I asked, that was also one of the questions as to if we can't get a ceremony, what would you like to see happen? And it's like a parade if nothing can happen.
I think one of the things I suggested to the superintendent a little while ago was, we can do a ceremony, and you can have your class valedictorian, your class president speak in the actual cafeteria, and stream it out
In the gym.
to the parking lot, to the parents and the kids, and then have them come up one by one to get their diplomas at the front door. If we can't get a public assembly.
Yeah.
If it's not listed, so.
Yeah.
Again, I think the students' goals and dreams come first, but if we can't get there, I think we still can give you the ceremony you want.
Just not
working
to be-
together, it's just not going to be in one big room.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of a full-blown ceremony, but hopefully in June, maybe late June or later June, that would be something that we'd be allowed to do.
Hopefully.
So,
You know,
I would
Currently
certainly-
graduation's
yeah.
June 13th, so I mean,
I would say
wow.
13th might not, we'll see. Yeah.
I'm thinking like late July at this point. I don't know. No one really knows. I wish I knew.
Absolutely, absolutely. But,
Sorry.
no, we haven't forgotten you.
Okay, as long as you guys haven't forgotten about
Absolutely
it.
not.
And we're not
And we-
like throwing it
absolutely not.
away. I just
And
want
we
to make
won't.
sure.
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public participation? Not hearing, I'll make a motion to table our minutes to the end of the meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Reason is we have a presentation by Siemens on performance contract presentation, so I want to move along to that. They're online. So not hearing any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Stan?
I think Stan's on there.
Yeah.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stan. So it will be
Okay,
unanimous.
let me go ahead and get,
So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ruth Ellen and the Siemens people.
I'm going to unmute, and hopefully you can pick up where we are, or I will hang out by the computer so that you can hear us and I can translate questions if I need to. Everybody there? Tom? Oh, let me turn things on. Try that again.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Are you all in a same room where you have one big screen up, or?
I have a large screen up with one computer on it. And let me make
Okay.
sure I've got. Oops. I have, in the room with us, I have 2 board members, and Larry Gordon, Charlie King, and Tim Brown, who are board members. I'm here, and then remotely, I have my admin team and the other 2 board members who are with us tonight.
Okay, awesome.
And plus anybody else from the district who's watching.
Okay, perfect. Just let me know when you want me to start. I know we're on the new business section, so.
Okay, you are good to go. It is you.
You're up.
Okay.
You're up. Then you're here. So,
Fantastic. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Tom Seekins. I manage the performance contracting business for Siemens. Been working with the schools in Maine and Hampshire for about 16 years, and that's all I've been doing is the K-12 market. So it's definitely the only thing that I've been playing in since my inception of the company. On the phone with me is Charlie Roman, one of our lead energy engineers, and Kevin Christensen, and possibly Mike Wentworth, local service account manager for Farmington Schools with Siemens. So we've done at least 3 of these presentations. I know one just recently with subcommittees, or the administration team, and a couple board members were there. And so I'm going to do a similar format. I've added a few things here on the slide deck that we can discuss, but this is the same format that you saw last time. Essentially, we will be focusing on the project, but the slide deck will kind of hopefully answer a lot of the questions you may have. So by the end of it, I anticipate obviously some questions, but hopefully if I do a good enough job with the slides, that the numbers that we show after the slides will all make sense to everyone. So one of the things that came up, and it's pretty typical, was the differences between a general contract or a low bid bonded project versus a performance contract or a taxes unleased project. Because as everyone knows, it's not a bonded project. These are done via taxes unleased purchase.
Yeah. It's his screen.
Well, these are obviously pretty self-explanatory, but some of the big things that jump out for us and that makes a big difference, which is why we have several school districts that have now done 3, 4, 5, even 6 phases of these because of the stuff that I'm showing you on the screen. And that's why it's worth it.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Is there a way that you can make that so that the slide is the full screen? Because it's kind of tough to read on this end.
Perfect.
Get up top.
There you go. Thank you.
No,
So
it's gotta go up
look
to-
over for us.
No,
Thank you. Yep,
No.
great. Thank you.
Better than it was.
no, it's-
So, like I was mentioning, the big things here for us are the change orders and the relationship of the end user, the customer. There is nothing that we hide in this thing. You can't hide it. You have to do everything above board. I know there's a lot of questions that come out of that. Where does the pricing comes from? How do the projects get developed? So hopefully we go through some of that today. But some of the upfront things to discuss that will hopefully make everyone feel better about this whole process is that, again, the change order thing is a big deal. Anyone that's done a general contracted project, a low bid project, you know that that's inevitable. Change orders happen. We do dabble in that market. I'll show you some slides on markets that we do play in, and every single time there's change orders. In this process, and we can show you several examples, and you can speak to customers where they'll tell you there is no change orders in our process. If a contractor that works underneath of us has missed something along the way, or it wasn't part of our design build drawings or schematics, and we own that change order. So all responsibility for all work done underneath of our umbrella. So every single contractor that would work underneath this project, we own the responsibility of it. If we've got competitive numbers on the lighting and the electrical that works for the lighting, or the boilers, the actual equipment, you name it, downstream, we own every single piece of it. So if there's electrical contractors that are going to be running, several thousand linear feet of pipe, or it could be pipe, I guess, as well as wire through a building, and something is not done correctly, and thus a piece of equipment is not operating correctly, we own the responsibility of that. You sometimes see stuff that's immediate, and sometimes you won't see something for a year or two. A good example is you can speak to the folks at Farmington, New Hampshire schools. We finished their performance contract probably 4 or 5 years ago, and just now figuring out that the boiler room that they're in is adjacent to another room. The air does get dirty, and it clogged up the air intake to the boilers, the condensing boilers, the burner aspect of it. And so the boiler was shutting off, and it wasn't running as efficiently as it should have. We probably spent around $20,000 in service calls just trying to figure out those problems. And we got Beeson back there to isolate the issues. So it's a real thing, and it's real cost, and it might not happen right away, but rest assured, we can again show you examples where we own that risk. And it could be 4 or 5 years from now, we still do it, which we are for Barrington, at no cost to them. All the cost, obviously, to engineer the project, we hold all that cost. We show you what it is. I will show you all those costs shortly here. And the non-appropriation clause for the tax-exempt lease purchase is pretty important. Obviously, the banks recognize the fact that you appropriate your budget annually, so any risk of non-payment or any issues down the road is on the bank. It's not a bond, so it's not on the taxpayers. The taxpayers are not holding the risk to this thing, the bank is. So it's a pretty big deal. And really, this is the only way to legally design and build a project in Maine and Hampshire with schools of any size. So regardless if a contractor goes belly up during a project, we own the risk of it. That's happened as well. So big picture here, this utility number is your existing utility budget. Don't take umbrage of these, and these aren't exact. I'm just trying to show you they're pretty darn close. But so say this is your existing budget here. After implementing said measures, depending on what your project looks like, so LED lighting and potentially boilers and building envelope, it drops your utility budget, right? So say now your utility budget is dropped down to $176,000. So you're going to keep your budget the same, of course. But now the drop, this delta between the 258 and 176 is making these payments. So it is intended to be a cash flow neutral proposition. So that's really the long and short of the financing mechanism. I just thought it would be important to kind of rehash that. I talked about the people on the team here today. These are the measures that we have looked at for the district so far. Once again, we look at this as a capital planning tool, so this doesn't mean that everything is going to be, all the world's problems are not going to be solved in one project. We fully understand that, but for the purposes of today, we have identified just about everything in your buildings that affect the classroom environment, and that is the most important part of this whole thing. That's the driver from the beginning, is focus on the learning environment and make the biggest increases that we can there. And I'll show you why. Before we actually start to address all of these measures right here, sorry to jump back and forth, but there's a lot here. Before we look at any of this stuff, we start kind of what we think is going on in the buildings, but this is a lot of the feedback that we got from your actual teachers, the folks in the buildings that are doing the real work. As you can see, a lot of these comments, the room is either cold or warm, and there is consistent cold air blowing down from the ceiling. Goes to almost 90 when the heat goes on in fall. I have to open my windows. This is pretty typical stuff that we see in a lot of school districts that really have no control system in place, which you definitely you don't. My room was always freezing, and I was told that I needed to fix the radiator, but not in the budget, which is obviously something is quite common. This is just a few of the comments. We got over 100, and every one of them were very similar to this. And as you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory that it's really important to start addressing these things. It does impact the learning environment, but it's not us telling you it's best to come from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So once again, we talked with Ellen about this, and and Larry, of course, that this project will not solve all of these problems, will not make all these go away. It's important for the teachers to know that. However, it is important for them to know that you are trying to do what you can in adjusting things as you go along, or addressing things rather. But things like I have two temperatures, freezing and hot, that stuff is, we can address that, or at least get it closer. And that's why this will probably be a multi-phased approach, because this stuff does get expensive. Just a summary of the things that we looked at as part of the whole overall project, to kind of group them together, or group them together rather. You get your lighting, the building envelope, walk-in controller, coolers, which is the kitchen stuff, exterior facade, DDC, which is direct digital control, also known as the energy management system, transformers, boilers, and unit ventilators. All ventilation, really, when it comes down to it. Unit ventilators are the ventilation systems in the classroom. So as we get through some of the stuff here, the existing equipment. So what we like to do is we use ASHRAE standards for all of the expected life. And as you can see here, for the boiler side of things, most of the stuff and most of the things that we would propose for a first phase anyway, really at the high school, everything at the high school is at its useful life or beyond it. Henry Wilson is not as bad, but getting closer. Really for the rest of the district, but the high school definitely has the most opportunities, we'll say. So we've got several options here to address, and so I may have Charlie Roman talk about. Charlie and I worked together for my 16 years, but Charlie's been with the company for more than 20 and designed most all of our boiler systems, whether they're hybrid or not. And so he's been around long enough to do just oil, cast iron sectional boilers, steam boilers. And this is some of the new things that we're doing with condensing technology. So Charlie, you talk quickly about the, if you want, about the hybrid approach and maybe some.
Thanks, Tom. So what we recommended for the high school is what Tom had mentioned, is a hybrid boiler plant. It's been around for a long time. And the theory behind it is, if it's a water-based plant, you install a secondary boiler, which is a condensing boiler, which is high efficiency, over 90%. It can be either propane or natural gas, depending on what fuel you have. That boiler runs condensing when the return temperature back to the boiler, return water temperature is less than 140 degrees. So ideally that boiler would run in the shoulder seasons, which would be March, April, October, November. They could run other times of the year as well, but those are the times of the year when it would condense and the efficiency would be over 90%. So that's the prime savings period. One of the things that's changed over the years, when it was first developed, the boilers were sized small to keep the cost down. So you would have 2 boilers in the boiler room, and you would install a third boiler. That third boiler would be the hybrid piece of it. What we figured out over time was if you do it in an older plant where you need to replace the boiler, it's not that much more expensive to replace the entire boiler, and now that boiler becomes part of your infrastructure replacement rather than adding another boiler to it. There's some things about condensing boilers that are a little bit different than the fossil fuels. They require a separate flue vent. They can't be tied into the same flue. Those are basically polypropylene flue stacks that would be installed. They can be installed horizontally up into the building, depending on the situation. But that would be a completely separate sealed venting system for that boiler. Wouldn't interrupt the other boiler at all. And some of the positive pieces of this is if you do have another boiler that matches the one that was there, and we've done this in other school districts, is once we disassemble that first boiler, we don't throw it away. We clean the sections up. We find a place within your system to be able to store them. Well, the existing boilers are cast iron sectional boilers, and sections crack. And on average, it could cost anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 to replace a section in a boiler. So we would clean up the sections on that first boiler, store them for you, and then if you had any issues with the other boiler, you could use those sections rather than purchasing new sections. So it saves money in the long run, and it helps lengthen the time that existing boiler has to run, because you have, parts that are free to be able to use to interchange with it.
Yeah, and then, thanks, Charlie. And I put up on the screen here the Henry Wilson boiler schematic as well, and then a picture of, we've installed hundreds of these boilers, but this is a school that we just did this past year. We just kind of started it up, so it kind of shows you what it looks like. And those are Charlie's drawings that you see on the page there, so that's not just an example. That is your boiler room and what we would do in regards to implementing it. And I've got some further slides on why condensing versus oil-fired further down, but this is a domestic hot water situation as well. So as you know, you have a separate domestic hot water heater at each facility. So this is something that might help too. For those wondering why should we go do fuel, based on today's fuel costs right now, I think that you probably wouldn't. But we're in a time that's unparalleled. It'd be unfair to consider oil prices based on what's happening right now. We've never seen this in a very, very long time. Hopefully never do again. But the intention of this project is not to be reactive based on today's oil price, but the next 10 years. So a lot of this is what Charlie just talked about, but Once again, we can give you, I don't even know, over 100 schools that we've put these in, and they can tell you the success that we've had with them, the efficiency we've had with them, the maintenance savings alone, which we don't really take into consideration in these projects. But a typical section that's a section right there of a cast iron sectional boiler. It holds all the boiler, the hot water, and it heats it continuously versus the technology that we just showed does not. So those sections, if water was to come back beyond that 20-degree delta, like Charlie talked about, you crack sections, and those costs can be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, even higher, depending on how big the boilers are. Just to replace one section of a boiler. You don't have sections in that other technology, so the preventative maintenance savings is quite a bit too. And we don't take a lot of that in consideration because we really can't guarantee that. It's almost impossible to do that. So the other thing is that there's incentives for condensing boilers, propane or natural gas for a reason. That they, the federal government recognizes that they're not going to incentivize anything that's oil, because really there's no such thing as high efficiency condensing oil boilers. So any incentive that's out there, which we've got tied to this project, is geared around the propane high efficiency condensing boilers. And much of this is what Charlie just spoke about in regards to the differences between the two. But as you can see, there's a lot. Okay, on the ventilation aspect of things, once again, as I talked about, the high school yields the biggest opportunity in regards to addressing existing equipment that's older. The other thing is the control side of it. As Larry spoke kind of at length with Larry about, the lack of visibility to the control systems or buildings. That's a big deal. It's kind of rare these days not to have that in place. But we'll address some of that later. We've looked at every bit of equipment you've got for ventilation. And ventilation equipment is one of those things that, does in schools. Historically, it tells us that they stay longer than they probably should. And I know that's ironic because it's the fresh air intake and heat for the classrooms. And that's all the things that make those teachers' comments go away. And I should say that teacher survey, that's not something we did. That was an electronic survey through SurveyMonkey that Ruth Ellen sent out via email to a link, and so it's not us pressuring teachers in the classroom to tell us what's bad. That didn't come from us. It came from Ruth Ellen to send to them to anonymously provide their feedback. I think that's an important thing because sometimes it may be that we're interviewing them and trying to drive a project. That's not the case. And once again, big air handlers, as you can see, like that one on the roof. Lots of different things here that we've looked at. Some of them are running, some of them are not running because the final engineering and commissioning wasn't right. And some of these they run too hard and too fast, they're too loud. Like this one on the gymnasium at Henry Wilson School really doesn't even run really at all because it's 100% outside air. As you can see, it's extremely expensive to run. There's a plethora of reasons why it's usually never used, but we've got it delineated on our slides. Once again, the classroom ventilation building in the bottom right-hand side, that's a univentilator. That's what they look like. They do go quite a bit beyond the useful life, but as you can see, they love to become bookshelves in schools. And so, history tells us that you find them as books stacked up all those little that vent up there. That's the heat and fresh air coming in. And sometimes you'll hear that the room's not getting enough heat once because students have put their backpacks on them or whatever the case may be, and it's just not circulating. So they are a problem child. This is something just to kind of show on the control side of it, the competitive bid side of it, when it comes down to all those things, the true cost of it. It's energy management system should be a big piece of the mechanical contractor's bid, and it kind of shows you once we get into this whole thing. And I use the case study of Oyster River on the left-hand side. Oyster River's been a service account of ours for a very long time. We've now since then done 3 performance contracts for those folks, but the first one resulted in a phone call that we responded to where they had done a low bid on an automation system at their middle school, and I think about 3/4 of the way through, parts of that construction team had just emancipated. They were no longer around, would respond, totally didn't even finish getting paid, just went on to other jobs. And consequently, we were brought back onto the scene to address it because they couldn't even hold school. It was getting so bad. So we found wires were just kind of hanging above the ceiling. Valves weren't connected, so they weren't getting heat. That's that whole low bid scenario that kind of has gone by the wayside these days with schools. These are some recent builds that we bid on in the competitive market. It just kind of shows the markup structure. So for example, like Sanford High School and the rest of these, is that there's a competitive bid spec that goes out. Our controls team bid on this with a low bidder. I think probably 5 or 6 different controls company bid on that one, and probably more for some of the others too. But then the mechanical contractor takes our number and they have to carry it. Of course, they have their markup structure on top of that, usually at least 10%. And then, of course, the general contractor takes their markup, as they should, and as mechanical contractors should. They mark up the mechanicals, then ours, and then up to the construction manager. So just to show you that we take a lot of time pricing out the controls, looking at the numbers per square foot, making sure things are in accordance with what we've been bidding on. So this is not a throw a number at it and hope that you guys don't blanket. There's a lot of time that goes into this. We looked at exterior facade. This is going to be a tough one. Because those cal walls are pretty expensive to replace. That's the fact that they're still there, obviously. And so we've done some schematics on this to figure out what would be the best approach. And I think we decided that maybe one wing at a time. We've done a lot of these. This is a rendering down below what it would look like, but we would expect you probably to do a darker ionized frame in between the windows. Sarah on our team, who's worked with you guys a little bit, she did that rendering for us down below through Revit. But this above section, proposed typical classroom section, that's kind of what it would look like, and these would be the egress windows. So I can show you that we've done quite a few of these. That's actually the mass way for Oyster River School down below. Not Calwall, but something similar. It wasn't, inexpensive, but you can see the results. I mean, what a difference in the way that building looks. It looks like an entirely new building, and really it's not. It's a little bit of facade and new windows. And then, of course, the elementary school above. So that can be a big deal. Now, this is not going to have great energy saving, as everyone knows. It's hard to do stuff like this and show a tremendous payback. So that's that part that we talk about where the capital part that the district would contribute towards the cash flow to make stuff like that happen. But a lot of building envelope time spent under this project. I'll show more, but this is, we've got a full report on this. We've got tons of data on it, what it looks like. When we talk about building envelope, these are the things that we're looking at on the left-hand side here, but, the gaps in the doors, as you can see down below, that steel gasketing that we install in the project, once again, all that stuff is guaranteed. So, we're showing guaranteed savings. In order to do that, this stuff has to stay operational and can't fall apart on you or on us because we have to replace it. So, as you can see, the building envelope specialist doing a smoke test in the upper right there to do leak detection. Here's more of it. Above the ceilings, there's so many spots where the naked eye is not going to see it. But all of this stuff attributes to those classroom fluctuations in temperatures. Buildings added onto where, new walls are added onto existing walls, and those structures just aren't commissioned after the fact because those contractors are already gone and the project's closed out, and it'd be tough to come back and say you missed a spot. But we've got a ton of information on this. Kind of shows you the validity of it. Just in the high school alone, you can see even the rooftop units, the 26 rooftop ventilation units to be open, the dampers and everything, the perimeters of those things resealed and capped. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into building envelope. As you can see, it just continues on and on and on, but all this stuff. So there's no point, the reason we have so much information on this is there's no point to put new controls in which you need, new ventilation equipment which you need, and new boilers. if we're not going to keep the air in, the good air in, the bad air out, so to speak. So you got to do this in concert with it. Otherwise, you're just kind of, going in circles, chasing your tail. I'm not sure if Mike Wentworth jumped in the call. I was going to have him talk a little bit about the controls piece. If he is, I might speak up, but if not, I'll just go through it. Desigo is the energy management system that Siemens that we use, we specify. As you can see on the left-hand side there, it is BACnet. Modbus, all those things are just protocols of open systems. So if something were to go awry with the relationship between Farmington and Siemens, at no point are you held over a barrel to Siemens after this project. Not for payment, not for anything, not even controls. So if you find that things aren't going swimmingly and you want to go with another controls company or service company to maintain the buildings, you can. That's what the intent is, not to hold you hostage. Just a basic hierarchy on what energy management systems kind of look like. The field level, all these little cartoons down here are different things. So security, fire alarm, electronic load centers, transformers, things like that. I mean, you can bring so much into this thing. It's very scalable. You're not going to do all this at once, but this platform, which you don't have today, allows you to do all this. The third integration piece is these are the panels that actually run the buildings. They're computers that run all of the ventilation, all of the heat, and it reports up to a BMS system. I'm sure you've heard of it, but that's right here. That would be a computer server where a Desigo, for example, would sit. Today that doesn't exist, but after this project, Larry would have the ability to go onto his PC or even a smartphone, as you can see here, and connect to a system and just check on things on the weekend. Maybe there's really bad weather coming and you never know what's going to happen, but you're able to see the whole school, every single room, see the temperature, check the boiler room, make sure everything's fine before anything catastrophic happens. One bad freeze up, an oil break, and they paid for everything you've done here and then some. And this is kind of these panels down here, what I just showed you, these are the panels that kind of run the buildings. Those obviously don't exist today, but most of which, again, the entire high school is essentially pneumatic, so it's all air-driven from a compressor. Pound for pound, BTU for BTU, there's nothing that is more inefficient from an energy standpoint than the pneumatics or an air compressor in a building. Those tubes, every valve, air handler, everything, the thermostats in the classrooms have little tubes of air that's being compressed from the boiler room, and those tubes after time they crack and the air is just being dispersed everywhere. So the compressor just continually runs to keep that pressure up, and it's just impossible to keep up with after time. So I'll get into some of the lighting. This is actually your classroom right here, and captures a little bit of both. You can see the unit ventilator there in the classroom and then the tapestry above the light, and we saw that here quite often. It's about every other fixture to keep the lighting down because there's no dimming control. So it's just bright or not, and a lot of noise we saw in some of the comments, the buzzing and the humming. These are examples of actual fixture replacements. We've done lots of these now. We just did a big one for Laconia schools, Laconia, New Hampshire. We just did a performance contract and just installed about 6,000 new LED fixtures with dimming. And there are rooms that they thought they didn't want to touch with dimming, so we didn't. After we finished the project, just the full control in the classroom level, we went back and had to fix a couple areas because they were just like, oh my God, it's so bright. We need to have the control. And so these are the two kind of options we've laid out for you guys, and I'll show you on that sheet after the fact. We have pricing. We call this the volumetric fixture. Looks really nice. This is the flat panel fixture. Also looks great, so it's really a matter of preference. Both extremely efficient, and these are a different quality than you'd see at any box store, like a Home Depot, Lowe's, or anything local. These things have 7 to 10-year warranties on them that are part of your project. They're extremely high quality. They're made for schools to last, and last a very long time, and anywhere from 50 to 100,000 hours of runtime without having to worry about these things burning out. So it's a much different quality than you normally see. And this is just some more clip art of what those look like. and I won't get into too much of this, but, because I'll talk about the sensors. So this is the wall switch that we would propose, something similar to this. Doesn't have to be exact, but it really allows full control of the system at the classroom level. So the teacher, depending on what room you're in, every application is different. And when we lay these things out, we spend a very, very long time understanding the dynamic of the classroom. If it's a special needs classroom, if it's kids with learning disabilities that have there's an affliction to bright lights or too low of lights, the library, computer lab, anything. You gotta have, we do a study based on that area, and so the light that's chosen is based on that environment. It's not just to go through and change out bulbs. You can do it, and that's cheap to do it that way, but there's a reason we spend the time to do it right. Walk-in freezer controls, these are the motors that control those things. This is a very quick payback measure. A lot of times you see the big walk-in coolers and freezers in schools. When deliveries are happening, when the door's left open, the evaporator fan just runs as hard as it can because it's sensing that there's a leak and it's trying to keep up temperatures. This kind of controller will control the door heaters. It'll slow down the motors, ECM motors, energy motors, so it only feeds when it needs it. It's tremendous savings, and it also spits out information on the regulatory aspect of the kitchen staff needing to document temperature controls in the kitchen and show that they're keeping things at adequate temperatures. Now, a lot of schools, they have to handwrite it with like a clipboard, and this will spit it out electronically at the end of the year if they want it. Transformers, big savings here, believe it or not, and if there's any questions about these, we can talk about it. Kevin spent some pretty good time on this. We've done these in a lot of school systems. It's one of those things that just kind of always gets left behind because who's looking to replace transformers, right? They do have a life expectancy, and as you can see here at the high school, 20 years. They're at that point. And, so what I'll do is I'll just show you real quick this example here. So based on all the things I chose there, this next tool I'm going to show you, and I'll probably come back to this slide, but this is essentially how the project would be paid for. And this is a cash flow that we create to send out to banks to bid on your project. But on the next sheet that we're going to show you where you select the actual project cost, say that we chose a project that looked like $2,134,000 above 027. How it is paid for. So as you start on the left-hand column there, FYE, fiscal year ending 21, and then of course, this is a 17-year tax-exempt lease purchase. We find right now and historically that that's a sweet spot for banks. They still get really good rates. The equipment that they're financing or they're holding the risk to has value at 17 years, 20 years and beyond, it loses its value, so the rates go up and it's just not as attractive. So you've got your principal and interest payment right here. That's the third party. And this is just, you can make this level set down the road, but just to kind of show as this, the banks can manipulate this schedule for you to fit your budget so that it's cash flow neutral. But if the finance director really would like to have a flat payment, you can do that as well. But so based on this finance amount of $2 million, your principal and interest payment would be here. And how that's paid for is the first year, as you can see, this is zero, but you see there's construction savings. The construction savings happens because you have a whole year of no payments to the bank after you sign contracts. So the day you sign contracts to do this is a whole year to do construction. And the thought process is, with this performance contracting, is that you got to yield the savings to make the payments. So that's why there's a whole year. But you're obviously going to start saving energy. So that's this construction savings. You start changing everything out to LED lights, and you're changing out your boilers, and you're sealing up the buildings. You're saving a ton of energy. But we're not having to capture it that first year, so you do have that first year of construction savings. So, but from there, a year later, the guaranteed energy savings on these measures selected is $86,000. Operational savings, that's your total, and so it's distributed to that payment. So that's for this project selected, and we haven't gone back to finalize all of the nuts and bolts and every little last price on this. So, understanding that, I'll get into that when we show the pricing, but there's a lot of reason behind this. This number here addresses a lot of the ventilation equipment, the boilers, the lights, the controls, a lot of cool things. You can get this thing, so there is no $40,000 in capital contribution here, but just to show an example of what can be done. So if you install all the measures that are encompassed under this number here, your rebates will be conservatively $176,000. You get that directly from Eversource, New Hampshire. You guys escrow that and you're under your budget, of course. And after your first year, to make that payment, you need this $40,000 with guaranteed energy savings and operational savings to make that payment, as you can see. So because this rebate incentive will cover your first 4 years of this, $40,000. So between a year of no payment and then the incentives covering this for 4 years, you really wouldn't have to worry about budgeting the $40,000 a year to put towards your payment structure for about 5 years. So I only show that because it's a pretty attractive way to get more out of your project and not really have to worry about any capital contribution. So it is still neutral, but after that 5 years, you'll in your budget you'll have $40,000. The other thing is that this number here of guaranteed savings is very conservative. We're conservative on purpose so that we don't hold you guys to a building use that you really can't get to. So, if we're going to save 100,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, we're probably around 110, 15,000. But we want you to have the flexibility to use your buildings for night school, whatever you want to do. You start having functions after the 3 p.m. contractual schedule we come up with, you can't be held hostage to a payment to operate your buildings. You got to use them as you wish. So on average, we're about 20% conservative. So you can expect that this number would be higher. So hopefully that makes sense. This is all my contact information. You guys have this slide deck. I will just show a couple quick things. This is all of the teacher comments that we have. Again, well, this is just 29 of them, but this is stuff that the teacher just sent back to Ruth Ellen through the Survey Monkey, and I can send this up to Ruth Ellen too to disperse to everyone, but this is just 29 of the 100. And I'll show just a quick graphic of what the automation systems would look like. This is not a unit ventilator, but a similar fashion that, if Larry had a call or had an alarm pop up on his phone that there was a low temp in a classroom or something, or a teacher just said, hey, my room's freezing, he could log on and just look at the room temp here, and then what's the set point, and then kind of address what's going on remotely. It saves you guys money to have to call a service company, like us or anyone really, because he can address it remotely. Maybe it was just overridden at the thermostat and he can fix that. So this would be what he would look at on the weekends or before a big storm or something. I just want to make sure everything looks good, so he just checks out the building, and you can see every temperature in every room, and if there's an issue, all you do is you hover your mouse over it, and then it would bring up the room and say, all right, what room is this, what's going on, and so on and so forth. And that would go for everything. That's more complicated, of course. That would be a boiler room, looking at the pumps, the boilers. Like I said, one time there's a freeze up and catastrophic damage happens, this is all paid for. But this is the kind of stuff that we'd be looking to build for you folks. I'm going to show this first. This is the lighting bids. So just as one measure, we collected bids from these companies here. These are the bids that, as they come in. And so we evaluate them based on the fact that they participate in the walkthroughs that Kevin had done? Did they achieve everything we've asked them to look at? Were the counts right? Were they apples to apples? And then obviously they have to be a qualified company to bid on this. Then we'll, and Kevin can explain it, but we've got a few different options here, and I'll show you. But Kevin, you want to explain anything more on this as you get the bids here? Yeah, just as the winner of the bid came through, they did notice that there were some code issues going on with the high school. So the price did go up after the bid because they had to rewire some of the ballast wiring, which wasn't rated for the breaker or the amperage at the breaker load. So that was one of the notes that I had highlighted. Okay, so if there's any discrepancy. So we take that number, it's lower here than you saw in that prior slide, but this is essentially the cost breakdown from when we take the number and then the number you see in the sell price. As we talked about, our overhead is 14% and profit is 10%, but this is essentially what goes into these numbers in the project. So the contingency, which is a pretty standard thing, if things go as planned and they don't find anything that's broken, you never know when you're replacing this many fixtures. Is the ceiling panels and is the grid up to snuff? There's no way to count and test every single piece of grid and the ceiling tile on that building, or maybe it's kind of rotted above. So as we get into it, we start ripping and tearing, we kind of own it. So it's a big reason why that contingency cost is there. If for some reason it goes perfectly smooth, then we always give that money back in one shape or the other. Every single job, we can show you that that's been the case. Oyster River, Farmington, Hillsborough, Deering, Hopkinton, they all had those issues. And this is the costs that make up our profit and overhead down below. And I don't need to go through all this probably, but as you can see here, I just wanted you to see how we arrived at our numbers and our markup structure. So we break everything out, we share the numbers that we got from the contractor on that, and then where the costs come from. Everything from, permits to commissioning the job, at 2% to $3,000, that stuff's all very important. I mean, i.e. Oyster River. Obviously, they never even got to commissioning because it never was finished, but if they were to commission, they would have found that almost every valve they had was never even connected. So this is lighting, not valves, but the same thing applies for the other stuff that we're looking at. And so we get that same breakdown for the other fixtures as well. And then, so I go back into, this is our tool. This is the total sheet. Obviously, I have in here a dollar amount that does not reflect what we think that you guys will do as a project. But once again, look at this as a capital planning tool for the future. So as we cross things out here, you'll know that there's things left on the table that need to be done. Before I get into this sheet, are there any questions by anyone before I get going to clarify that might be burning out there?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I'll see if you
Okay.
can hear him, and
Yeah.
if not, I'll translate.
Tom,
Okay.
can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
On your page 35, on your guaranteed energy savings, is that those numbers an annual number? So in year 17, the savings for that year is $138,000 approximately?
Correct.
And those numbers increase based upon an escalator on utility costs? Is that why the numbers are increasing each year? Is that based upon an escalator of utility costs and electrical costs?
Yep, good question. We built in a 3% escalator. The national average for these is 5%, but we use a 3% just to be a little more conservative. But yeah, so it just gives you the flexibility down the road of all utilities. So that goes for maintenance costs, electricity, water, any utility. We use 3% escalators. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so the
Oh, wait a minute.
Hold on.
Wait, I think there's another question.
Stan, did you have one?
None of these last slides are in this packet, so I can't see any of the things you're talking about.
The slides that he has up now, yeah, you're right. It's not in the packet that we were provided. This was from,
But I don't know how I'm supposed to understand what he's talking about. I can't see it on the screen and I can't see it here.
right.
Okay, so if these are ones that you can send to us, Tom, I will get them put up.
Stan, I also put in the chat area of the Google Meet the link to YouTube Live, and it has all the slides up nice and clear.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I can see why I'd be confused. So obviously, you're hopefully using the link so you can see the presentation.
Right, we've got links and we have multimedia presentation going on.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I can, and also, if there's any questions about any of this, I can, and if we don't get an answer today, Helen has my contact information. You can call anytime. I'm glad to go over any of this stuff. But hopefully, I'm sharing my computer screen, so yeah, there's probably not gonna, there's gonna be some things that are not in the PowerPoint package that went out. It'd be impossible to keep it in flow without looking at the screen, so hopefully we'll get there.
I think what he's talking about, Tom, is the fact that you're sharing a spreadsheet that he doesn't have access to, as far as being able to go back and look at it.
Yes, the slideshow is in there, but the last slides aren't there, and I can't read them on the screen here, and I can't read them on the screen of YouTube. They're all blurry. So I can't, you're talking about numbers, but then I can't see what the numbers are.
Yeah,
Tim?
Ruth,
Is it possible, this is Tim Brown, is it possible, I'm looking at your sell price on your handout on page 35. Is it possible to get a breakdown in a written spreadsheet what that sell price includes?
yeah, so you broke up a little bit, Tim. You said on which slide?
I'll come up to the microphone.
Okay.
Wait, if he's standing next to the computer, it's easier.
Gotcha.
On page 35, you've got a sell price. Is that sell price on page 35 just for the LED lighting, or is that for everything that you listed in your project?
So I'm hoping that with the slide deck that you have
On page
is
35.
reflective of my slides here. So 35 is, this is my page 35, which shows,
Go down one. Down one slide, yep.
right here?
Yes, you've got a sell, you've got your potential financial depiction, you've got a sell price. What does that sell price include on that slide? Is that just the LED lighting, or is that all your projects?
No, all the projects, Tim. And so I struggle between, and I was talking to Charlie about this and Kevin before the call, to figure out if I should go back and forth or just show this once. But this tool right here, Tim, I'm going to show you, I'm going to deselect everything, and it's going to match that number of $2 million something. So I'm going to go through that exercise with you guys right now. So I'll show you exactly how we arrived at that number. Sorry for the confusion there. That $2 million was everything that we select on this project that we thought made sense for phase one. Once again, this is your project, but you guys choose what you want. It's your budget. We're just showing you an example to show you how it was paid for. So I think I'll get there, Tim.
Okay.
The 6824 is everything checked in. This is everything checked in. The estimated savings is everything checked in. This is duplicated lighting efforts below. So, because we have like 3 lighting options for each building. So this is not the project here, and I'll show you how we get there. But line 11, performance assurance setups, development engineering costs. That's the cost for us to develop this project and engineer it so far. Whether we had to hire someone third party, our own engineers cost. When we get to these jobs, we open up a job number, and our engineers like Kevin and Charlie and many others, Carrie who worked on this, Carrie Worms, she and Kevin and Charlie, everyone puts their hourly rate on this thing. So that's the cost to develop the project so far. These numbers here for propane tanks and oil tank removal, all that stuff is linked to the measure below. So as we deselect things below, these numbers will change as well. But it just shows you that we kind of have to think of everything as we go. And $45,000 may seem exorbitant, but what that really is building a pad, putting up ballards to protect the propane tanks, fencing. We really think of everything when it comes to these projects. So it's all encompassing. The Zigo software will probably not be $73,000 because this assumes that you would choose all the automation systems, that we would pick below. So based on the project scope you choose, this number will go down because this is based upon those graphics that I showed you guys. So imagine this is just one graphic for one air handler. So our engineers would go through and build the graphic for this. It's custom made, and it shows all of what's going on in the space for every single classroom unit ventilator, every air handler, boiler room, so on and so forth. So it's the time to build all this data. And the unit ventilators are failing time. They're not as time consuming as these because you can do one and then most classrooms are the same. But when you do them like this, you obviously have the cost goes up. So that's where that cost comes from. So as I scroll down here, you'll deselect some of these measures. So EMS to DDC for the whole building, we're proposing to take this out and I'll explain why. But as you take that out, you'll notice the project just dropped from 68 to 65. And so that gazebo number will probably go down because we're no longer doing all of these. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Unit ventilators. So we broke this thing out so many different ways for you guys to be extremely flexible. So instead of just saying you're going to do all of the pneumatics as for an example under the project, we said, well, at the high school especially, unit ventilators are beyond their useful life already. So why not just address maybe half of them? We broke them up. There's 13 units here, 19 units there. You're not going to do them all in one phase because you can see it gets fairly costly. But as included in this number would be the new automation system. So you take out the pneumatics, obviously, and you put new automation in here. And that's what this number represents. So up above, because this came up last time, these savings attributed to the unit ventilators here. So if you were to do nothing and we just would put new controls on the unit ventilators, and EMS is energy management system, DCV is demand control ventilation, which is the space ventilates based on CO2 levels. And we add that technology in. It's something we do quite often in schools. So there's no sense to ventilate a room based on 40 students or 30 students if there's only 12. So the sensor senses CO2 levels and it only opens outside air dampers to ventilate and heat based on who's in the space. So we broke it out because if you decided not to do any of these, we could still do DCV and save you some energy. So we didn't want to make you feel like you were held hostage to doing all of it in order to get the savings. So I will remove one of these. As you can see, the price continues to go down. Here are the boiler options, and this would be to do.
I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just, if we do get rid of this one, we're all pulling out this one. So if we get rid of the pneumatics to DDC, we'll also pull out that one. But if we included that pneumatics and DDC, we could include that right here. So that would get zeroed out as well. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So the two boilers, this would be the full boiler room right here. To do both boilers at once. So basically cut it at the header and start over. 2 new boilers, 2 new V-spin boilers, get all the other ones out of there. But we understand that it can be expensive to do, and we're trying to make this cash flow neutral. So we went back and Charlie designed a boiler room that was a hybrid. So we would do it partially. So that's probably what would make most sense. Once again, you see the price dropping here. But this is something we do quite often when you have that, like Charlie said, you could use it for spare parts, for another one to go. The condensing boiler would be your lead boiler to garner most of the savings anyway. And you can always do it the year after or maybe 2 years from now. That depends on your budget. So as we go up here, building envelope, as you can see, is something we would consider. Now, of these options, we felt like this number here in the middle made the most sense because this is Enlighted 1. And what Enlighted 1 means is that it's an advanced lighting system that allows for tracking of students' assets. You have a card associated with it. Every fixture has a sensor in it, and it tracks everything throughout the building. It's advanced technology. It's pretty awesome. We have done it quite a bit. We did it in all the Laconia schools, but they had more savings to garner there, and obviously a bigger school district, so we were able to fit it in. And if that's something that is wanted, we can make it happen, but we also wanted you to have other options and not feel, again, held hostage to that. So we would recommend that you go with a flat panel or one of those two options that we showed you with dimming control in the classroom. You'd still get pretty good incentive there, keep the costs down, and your savings would reflect it. So that's really what this tool does. Now, we assume that we may have this conversation again, and we can go through this as a group and deselect things. But for the purposes of just trying to figure out what will work, we leave those in. As I scroll down through here, once again, EMS is energy management system, the hot water pumps, the VFDs, that is to control the pumps. Right now, you have a whole bank of pumps, which you saw in some of those pictures, 5 or 6 of them at Henry Wilson, and then, I can't remember how many in this school, but this would be consolidated into 2 base mounted pumps so that you can control the hot water based on what's needed in the building and not just kind of on or off or high or low. Anything you guys want to add to these lines, Kevin or Charlie?
Yeah, we'll just have to take this out, put that at 0. That will be the only way that can be in is if this line's in, if they didn't use all of it. So there we go.
But anything on these, I'm saying the pumps or the DCV for.
No, you're good.
Okay. And we'll go down through here and do the same thing. So, did I skip over a school somehow?
Henry Wilson was at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. It looked like I was way down the chart here, but I'll do the same thing for the same reason for these controls. Sometimes, these are nice things to have, but it doesn't always fit within the budget. And not for nothing, but you can add those advanced lighting controls down the road. I know life safety is a big deal for you guys and security, so those sensors are a big part of that. That's cutting edge technology, truly. We're doing that for Keene State College right now, is that's something they really want for students to have that sensor so they can track things going on throughout the campus, and that's pretty awesome stuff. And these new fixtures would accommodate that because they're a quality, high-end fixture that allows for that to be added onto down the road.
It reads the chip in the ID.
And so we didn't consider any univentilator replacement here just because the other schools, 2 schools, were probably in greater need, and there's some years left. Properly maintain those units, and you should be good for a couple more years. But down the road, they could be considered in our report as we delineated. And so as you can see here, I'll do the same thing. So now we're getting closer down to that number as I just spoke about for the $2 million. But these are all the building envelope measures, walk-in cooler measure. This would be domain control ventilation for this air handler here. And so this is the one that I showed the picture of that's not being run now. So for some of these, we would probably just take them out now because while we've isolated them as an issue, the information is there. But to make this thing a little better from a savings standpoint and a cash flow standpoint, consider moving them now. But that would be the cost to automate those things, so you can actually run them as you wish. And breaking up the CalWall system, we did bring through Granite State glass. We've used those folks with a great level of success in New Hampshire. More recently at Hopkinton schools, they did a phenomenal front entry there at one of their schools, and it looks awesome. But this stuff is obviously not going to have a crazy good payback, and we're not sure what you guys want to do for that. But from our perspective, Charlie and I and Kevin, we spoke about this quite often, and other members of the team, that this is something you guys really wanted to address. We could get better numbers. We just have to get a better scope of work for them to work off from, engineer it a little further. But that's how we keep that cost down at the beginning, the development cost, because we're not going to engineer things that we're not sure you're going to want to do. I spoke about that verbally before, but it's hard to show until we get to this point. But now you can see what I mean by that. There's no sense for us to spend $15,000 or $20,000 doing the whole building layout and engineering drawings for that. And getting competitive bids if we're not even sure it's something you guys are going to want to entertain doing just because of the cost. So we do get a budget number to show. So for now, I'll take both of those out. Same scenario here. This would be both boilers. We consider this is probably the route you'd want to go. And the rest of these would be just like above. ERV, this is the same variable frequency drive that we put on the pumps. It varies the speed on the pump based on the load of the building. So as the building needs, hot water sent throughout the building, the VFD tells the pump just exactly how much it needs, not just like a high charge and it slams on and delivers tons of hot water until it's satisfied, then shuts off. This varies the flow of the pump. Same with a fan. So ERV is energy recovering ventilation unit. This is like an air handler kind of. It will vary the fan supply based on the need in that space. So it doesn't just slam on and slam off. It saves on the longevity of the fan. Same with the pump, and it saves considerable energy. So that's why Eversource is willing to provide incentives for it. So there you go. That's the number right there. It should be pretty darn close to this one that I showed. And I'll go back. So based on everything selected here, it's $2 million, $82,000 a year in guaranteed energy savings for the first year, and then probable incentives by Eversource will be the 176. And so, unless anyone has any questions about any of these measures here, I'm happy to go through them again with you. But everything that I have selected in here for lighting, building envelope, cooler controls, and transformers, the pump replacement, the boiler replacements in each school, a lot of work, a lot of ventilation replacements, brand new software for the whole district. This is how we would pay for it, or how you would pay for it. Say we. Apologize. We use a 3% interest rate. We are seeing rates right now in the high twos because rates are down to keep the economy rolling. They're at historic lows right now for tax-exempt purchasing, so it is a good time to be utilizing this. But I use 3% just to be a little conservative because the vulnerability of things right now, who the heck knows? So I don't want to paint too pretty of a picture. But to our conversation a minute ago, this is that number. That's how we got there. And this is how you would essentially pay for it. So you can see why I said this would you need to, I guess, worst case scenario, because again, these are 20% thereabouts conservative. We are conservative in savings. We try to take the worst case scenario picture. So worst case, you'd put $40,000 towards it, but by all the things you select in that former sheet, condensing boilers, VFDs, the LED lights, those all garner a pretty handsome rebate there. So you really wouldn't have to worry about this worst case scenario for, again, about 5 years. And it's not to be insensitive to any budget, just saying that, based on your size of your budget, $40,000 is obviously not a tremendous amount of money, but it is a lot of money. So it's just to say that it wouldn't have to be addressed for 5 years, but that's the way we lay these out with a lot of schools.
I've got 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first is on your hot water systems within your schools. I'm seeing a lot of hot water tanks. Is there an advantage or disadvantage of going on demand where your schools probably wouldn't use a lot of hot water other than maybe a gym shower?
Or the kitchen.
Or the kitchen?
I knew all of us us are going to chime in at once here, but it's point of use or on demand is something that it's hard. The cost is actually quite a bit higher than just dropping it down what you've got there, just because the shower usage is just so low these days. Sports teams really don't even shower after games. So the thermal load, the domestic load is so low, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But Charlie or Kevin, you guys can chime in. Kevin, especially, walk through the buildings.
Yeah, oftentimes, I mean, if you want to say something too, Charlie, just oftentimes we insulate so thick on those units as well that you'll be surprised on how the payback will extend out. It'll take a lot longer to pay back payback. I think we've done some analyses on instantaneous hot water. If it was something to do with the beginning, that would be a consideration, but the infrastructure you have, it may not pay back. They don't often pay back, and that's why we didn't dig too deep into it. Charlie, do you have anything to add on that?
I mean, practically, the instantaneous hot water works fine for sinks. The issue is that it is expensive because you do have to install the instantaneous heater. It has to be wired. Normally, there's not a lot of circuits that are close to that. It's going to take a second breaker. So in small schools with limited amount of bathrooms, it can be done and it can work well. But in larger schools, if you have multiple bathrooms, it becomes fairly expensive. The other issue is the kitchens always require a domestic water heater anyway, because you need the domestic water heater to provide at least 140-degree water to the dishwasher and into the pot sinks. And the fact that you would need that anyway to offset that by the small loads of the sinks, it doesn't really line up very well. So since you need the hot water heater for the kitchen basically to do that anyway, to take off only the sink load off of that piece, it doesn't really equal the savings that you would get for the spend that you would put into the instantaneous.
Okay, my second question is as you guys do your project financial projections, is it possible to project out a system with a single heating oil source? So if we stayed with the current fuel oil we have versus converting over to a dual propane system, to compare the difference between the two?
So yes, I mean ultimately it's your choice, and we've done a lot of pellet boilers in New Hampshire, we're in Maine as well, and we don't sell any fuel type. We respond to whatever the customers request. So we've done them all. We do them all the time. So yes, we can absolutely price up oil boiler replacements as well as the gas boilers.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question, or another one coming anyway.
So Tom, it's Charlie King again, the chairman. I was at the subcommittee meeting, and
Yep.
the one thing that I requested, which I think you showed some of the information, was the breakdown regarding the electrical improvements in at least one school. I think you had some of the information you showed us tonight, which was the cost breakdown and bidders from the subcontractors. So one thing that I requested I hadn't seen yet was that exact response from the bidder that you selected in detail, along with, I think, the subsequent information that you showed here tonight. But I'd have, which I couldn't read because of the size. So if you could forward that to Ruth Ellen, that would be good.
Yeah, no problem. These documents are huge, so I was having a hard time getting them over, but I did end up Dropboxing it, and she got it. It was like Paul Revere type timing to get it over there.
Oh,
I got the.
No, I didn't send her this bid overview, but
okay.
the.
I was gonna say, yeah, I
couldn't get
got
it.
the slide deck, but I didn't get the other pieces. Okay.
Yeah,
I was
no,
just making sure I didn't miss
so-
something.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll PDF this to save space, and I could just email it to Ruth Ellen, and she can send it over to you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. One thing on the fuel. So Charlie sent this over to me before. We actually create a workbook before I go to that slide, actually, I forgot to talk about the baseline. So everything that we take for savings here is above. So we like to get a 3-year average for all fuel types or utility types, because what Siemens is really guaranteeing is kilowatt hours of electricity, gallons of oil or gallons of propane, CFM of water if it's applicable, not here. Because this changes. You can't really guarantee cost because that's associated with the actual unit of energy. And so we take this 3-year average and of what the cost is per kilowatt hour and so on and so forth, and that's what we use to try to be a bit conservative when it comes down to that. So these are the numbers, these are your numbers, of course, that we got from you guys, and that's how we do it. We take the 3-year average for everything. I just wanted that to be kind of clear that everyone knows how we do that. And here are the costs. So $1.95 in oil. This is an estimate for future use, because obviously if you go to more propane use, which you would if you were to choose that as an option, your propane rate would probably drop considerably. Over in Barrington and some other places that they have gone all propane, they're below $1 a gallon. So, but that being said, we then break it in, apologize. We break it into fuel type and then put it into a sheet. We actually created one that's even a little bit more robust than this, where it has solid fuel in it too. So we create the sheets for you guys, but it allows you to, based on current market rates of fuel, regardless of the type, you can punch it in, and then you can say, okay, based on how many fuel oil gallons we're going to use, if we change it to oil, we need to buy oil right now at $1.68 to make it break even versus propane at this location, right? Based on the fuel type, the content. So as we talked about last time, you get more BTUs out of a gallon of oil than you do propane. So we round them up in these cases, but you see right here is 138,700, I think it is, but we round it up to 139 versus 91. So you get more BTUs out of oil. So you have to take everything into consideration, but your combustion efficiency, which is when it's condensing, it's low 90s easily. But we use a very conservative number, once again, to not paint too pretty of a picture. So this is the kind of information that we compile in order to make those decisions. And we give you all this stuff after the fact. So if you were to have diversity in fuel type, so based on what's going on overseas, domestic oil prices just drive up, they fly up. Well, then you have the more domestic control of the propane, so now you can go to the propane side of things. And you can literally just use these tools to plug in the different numbers to figure out where you need to be. So if you're getting competitive rates for oil at like 2.25, you can type them into your sheet and figure out, all right, well, based on that information, I'll need to buy propane at like $1.80 to make it break even. And at $1.60, we're saving quite a bit of money. Charlie, want to add anything to this?
No, other than you see the combustion efficiency we list for the condensing boiler at 89, as Tom said. And actually, when it's condensing, it'll run 94. The reason why we used 89 is, we know that it runs at 94 when it says, temperatures outside are above 30, 35 degrees. But we have to build in a safety factor that you guys may run it all year long. You may not run it during those times. So we shave down the efficiency based on what the yearly operating efficiency would be, which means part of the year it's not going to condense. It'll still run at a high efficiency, but it won't condense. So that's the reason why that doesn't match up with what that would normally be when it condenses.
So I just wanted to show the theory or the kind of the math used and how we get there. We actually have to show you contractually in our contract as a whole separate exhibit so that you can identify it easily. We show you our calculations and everything, how we arrived at the savings. We have to do that per law. So, but a lot of that information comes from this data. Right here. And we put the teacher survey stuff in here too, but.
So this is the piece that you're gonna send to me to share with the board, correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna isolate all the stuff that we talked about here and send it in a PDF form so that you can see how you arrive at all the numbers and send you the cash flows and stuff. I'll probably send them in a separate document so you can kind of get to them easy.
Okay.
But one thing to say, as Ruth Ellen and Jana knows, is that we have created an RFP for banks to start gathering information to provide a competitive bid based on the $2.1 million. It doesn't mean you have to choose that. It would be just kind of that. Banks need at least 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to garner an actual proposal. There's a tremendous amount of time that goes into it for them because they're holding all the risk for this. It's not a bond. So they understand that there's a non-appropriation clause built into it. So it takes quite a bit of time to get competitive numbers from them. So we've already started that process in anticipation for your May meeting so that when you guys do go next month, that we have bids back from banks and that we're not just guessing on an interest rate of 3%. We actually have competitive bids that come in.
Okay.
Okay, Tom, I'd like to thank you guys for your presentation, and I think you've got some follow-up documentation that you're going to get Ruth Ellen?
Yes.
And-
So when you email that to me, I will get that to the board.
And I'm sure if any board members have any questions later that they come up with, please forward an email to Ruth Ellen and she can have them address it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Tom.
All right, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. A lot to absorb.
Did we need this for the next piece too?
No, actually, probably going to have to table that. I've not been able to confirm on the next item, which was a discussion on a roof bid with Jeff, who was the project manager from the public safety building, has not been able to confirm that he's going to be online, so I don't believe he's going to make it. So at this point, I'll table that to later in the discussion if he gets back to me. Otherwise, it'll have to be for another meeting.
Do we have a vote?
We can vote. I'll make a motion to table it to later in the meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
If he gets back to me that he's able to attend, we can possibly do it later tonight. Thank you, Stan. Next on, we'll move on to the Farmington School District Employee Handbook, second read. I don't know if you want to start off with that, Ruth Ellen?
Okay.
No, we'll do minutes at the end. That way we can try to get through this where we have staff on and.
Getting back to this piece, give me just a second.
Right, so back to,
Okay, and the handbook was actually, I believe, included with the 6th, and again on,
so Ruth Ellen put up a separate sheet of a couple areas that we needed to address, a list of items.
well, those were, those were highlighted in the book.
Right.
But this kind of encapsulates the pieces that would need to be addressed specifically.
So maybe we should start off, does any of the board members have any questions, concerns, or things they want to discuss that's not on this list? Which is the longevity compensation, the chain of command, holidays, and snow days. If anyone has anything else besides that.
I do.
Go ahead, Tim.
I've got, my first issue is the handbook defines employees that are not covered by collective bargain agreements as employees at will. Then as we go through the handbook, we set up a disciplinary process of first violation is going to be a written warning, second one's going to be, a separate punishment. So in effect, we're saying you're an employee at will multiple times during the handbook, yet we're setting up almost a contractual basis of saying, if you violate a policy, this is going to be the discipline we're going to take. So in essence, they don't become an employee at will. And I really like legal's opinion on that, because
Legal has looked at the handbook already.
I'm sorry to jump in. I was just asked by a couple, but Mr. Brown, could you talk just a little bit louder for some people listening? We're having a hard time just hearing Mr. Brown just a little bit.
Mr. Brown.
Here's what I'm gonna do too. I'm gonna move this over here,
Yep.
so then they'll pick you guys up.
Oh, sorry.
Is that any better?
Is that better?
Is that better?
Yes.
Shanna? Okay.
And I'll try to raise my voice.
Yeah.
Usually I can
Thank you.
get heard. I'd really like to see council's notes on the handbook, because I've dealt with that issue in the past with different attorneys, and it's kind of become an issue. My second issue with the way the handbook is laid out is, I think it's dangerous to point to policies in two different areas. You've got the policies that the board formulates and is available online as our policy. And then we're repeating that policy within a handbook. So as we get changes, we now have two areas that we need to change, the handbook and the online policies of the board. My vision of looking at the handbook, which is very well put together, and I'm not trying to be negative on it, but do we go to the point, Ruth Ellen, of we have our board policies. We have a handbook which basically describes your wages and your benefits and your key, maybe notification issues that are within law. Then either combined with the policy manual or as a separate document, you actually have an operations manual that keys in a lot of what's into this handbook.
Operations tends to, because this goes to employees, operations is separate from even what's included here. I understand what you're saying, though. Because operations is going to be those other procedures that would involve financial procedures, that would involve protocols for notifications that aren't necessarily employee-facing procedures. At least my understanding thereof.
But within each employee group, you're going to have policy and procedure specific to that group. So in an operations...
CBA and then...
In an operations manual, what I'm envisioning is, Larry's sitting here, I'll say custodial staff.
They're under CBA.
If they're, okay, but still within an operations manual, if you have a blood-borne pathogen spill within the school, here's your policy and what's expected of that employee.
That's every employee in the district. They all have to go through bloodborne pathogen
But
screening.
I'm using that as an example, so that you've got something to go back. A, you've got something that tells the employee what their expectations are, and B, you've got something to go back.
But that's also part of training. That's part of what we do on an annual basis with employees.
I can give you 2 examples since election where I saw policies in place that weren't followed. for whatever reason. And I don't think they were intentional violations. I think they were, we didn't know better. And I think, and again, part of it might be my ignorance because I don't know what exists in documentation within the district. Do we have an operations manual that encompasses just about everything within the district?
Not a single manual, no.
Okay.
And part of this is trying to make sure that we have those pieces in place. This is first piece. We have procedural manuals that are being done for the finance office. We are looking to try to have an employee handbook that's separate because I need to have something that I would give to employees who don't necessarily need everything for
From
finance.
custodial, okay, I get that.
They wouldn't need necessarily the custodial manual and all of the MDS sheets, MSDS sheets. They would, those other pieces. Trying to make sure that, because we don't have a separate HR office either, so to make sure that things are as streamlined as possible, to point back to a single document, because we have had instances in the past where this group and this group should have been dealt with on an equal playing field, and they weren't because there was not a single manual that dealt with both. And the manuals were in conflict with one another. So to be able to say, we have one employee handbook, that this is what applies to everybody. Now, there are pieces that only apply to paras, and a good part of that is in their CBA. There are pieces that only apply to teachers. That's in their CBA. And then there are staff handbooks within buildings that outline building procedures that what happens at Valley View may be different than what happens here. And those are separate handbooks. But this is what employees have in common. This is the common denominator piece. It's not with the exception of a CBA piece. Because there are pieces that do apply to custodians and paras and support staff, even though two of those groups are currently in a CBA.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Joel.
Ruth Ellen, have the bargaining units for the paras, the teachers, and the custodians had a chance to look at this?
Yes, they were part of the drafting of it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I want to go back to, Tim, your comments on the employee at will and disciplinary action. Can we go to that page? I think it's 34. Because I have a little bit different spin on it, and I just want to kind of go through it here because I just want to make sure I'm looking at it before. Because there was a section that talked about whether it be tiered discipline or progressive discipline, but that wasn't on this page 34. Where was it, Jim?
Let me see. Jana, jump in if you've got it.
I know it's in maybe a different section. I was just trying to find out what Tim was talking about it. Because I understand what Tim is saying, but in any employment situation, you have expectations of your employees. So typically, there is some levels of discipline, or whether it's tiered or progressive.
Yep, sorry about that. I couldn't get my unmute working. The progressive discipline policy, Ruth Ellen, is actually, it is policy on our website. We adopted it last spring. It was referenced in our dreadlock management.
But it's not.
We were looking for where that's referenced in here, Jana.
In the handbook or not in the safety plan?
In the handbook.
Handbook. It's under, hang on.
I thought it was discussed in here somewhere.
I think it's on page 34. It's under disciplinary procedure, and it references C policy GK-R for Farmington School District's progressive discipline policy. Do you see that, page 34?
Yeah, I see that's what it's noted there, so it's nowhere else listed here in this policy of what that is?
I saw it.
I thought it was,
It references, yeah, the policy has the details of that. It says, please reference that policy for the progressive discipline policy.
well, at a minimum, if that would have to be an addendum to this document, because if you're going to give something to an employee so they can say this is everything you need to know, and they're referencing that, then it should be like an attachment or whatever.
But if the policies are available on the website, they're available to all. And
Okay, so I would want to review that to make sure it matches what I'm used to as far as discipline, but it's not in here, so I guess it's not up for review. It's a separate policy. But I don't take.
Described in the paragraph right above what that is, and then the details are on GKR.
Okay. Well, maybe that's where I saw a reference. Let me go down there. No, it doesn't. What am I missing?
Might be on the
GKR's
policy itself.
progressive discipline policy, which is on the website.
Right, but Stan had mentioned that it was described above it, but,
It says, under normal circumstances, the district endorses a policy of progressive
Right.
discipline. It gives generalities, and then please see GKR for the policy itself.
okay.
It does not modify the status of employees as employees at will, or in any way restrict the district's right to bypass the disciplinary procedures suggested. If something is egregious and they're employees at
Right.
will, they can be terminated,
Right,
done.
but that would be listed in that policy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is typically what's listed, based upon,
Do you want me to read GKR?
no, I just, with Tim's comment, I wasn't hung up on it as his concern was, because I think you already have that in the workplace, and even though employee at will is kind of a statement of, you could be let go for any reason, that's typically not how we operate.
Right.
So we operate with, different levels of discipline for different instances. So I don't think that, it sounds a lot different, but functionally, it's not for me. One of the concerns I did have, and I'm not looking to change this document, but I think it's problematic to have some benefits and say pay and benefits in this policy, because as those change, negotiation with individuals, they can get out of sync. So I'm not looking to change this because it's a lot of work at this point, but in future, I would say try to get those out in a separate document so they're only in one place.
Right.
Or it could be in a CBA, they could be in a contractual on an administrator, they could be just policy based upon people that fall into other classes. And when you have them in multiple places,
You can miss one of
they
them.
get out of sync, and then people go, well, over here it says I got 3 sick days, and over here it says I have 5 sick days. Which one is it?
Right.
But I'm, like I said, I'm not looking to change this at this point, but, because it would just take a lot of work that would, and, some of this needs to get done, so that's just a comment.
Okay.
Anyone else with anything that's not on the list, so we can maybe go to the list?
Bill?
Okay, so if we go to the list, we'll take the first one. It would be longevity compensation on page 17 or 18. So let's jump to there, if we can.
And I believe it's also highlighted for you. Currently, we do not offer administrator longevity.
But so my question is, have we done that in individual contracts?
No,
So
we
there's-
have not. So the question. In the past.
Okay.
Since I've been here, it's not been included. Fair enough.
So, Joel, let me ask you a question, seeing you've been here the longest. On the longevity for this pay, what typically has the board has done for this class of employee in the past?
The longevity for what? Say that again?
Administrators.
For the administrators?
Have they extended that in your tenure to be consistent with the other positions?
I don't think so.
So the question is that something that the board wants to do? If not, it can be removed. The question was, since others did have it, if you were going to do for a class, it would make sense to do it for the entire class.
Right. So, but this administrators would be principals, vice principals, and SAU staff?
As district administrators, so it would be transportation and facilities coordinator,
Okay.
IT director, special ed director, curriculum director, and then your principals and assistant principals.
But this is brand new, correct?
Is this something you want to do or not? In the past, I've been told that it might have happened. I didn't get it while I was here. I don't know that you got it while you were here.
Like, what passed?
In the past 5 years?
It's not been since I've been here, but I've been told that it may have happened in a gap when I wasn't.
So if we go to the line above it, Ruth Ellen, it says year-round support staff, administrative assistants, bus drivers, SAU business office staff.
Right. Those are the ones who are considered the support staff, yes.
But you have SAU business office staff would be what type of positions?
SAU business office would be payroll, accounts
Okay.
payable, accounts receivable,
Administrative assistants?
would be secretaries.
See, this is another reason why I think it should be separate from the policy, because it's kind of separate from the document. It's,
Well, this is a handbook,
I
not a
know.
policy.
Right, but it was setting policy.
No, you're approving a handbook. This
Right.
is not policy. This is a handbook.
But this has been whether this has been enforced all the time or not.
Correct.
So-
And this has been there was a support staff handbook for the SAU staff and a support staff handbook for the building staff, which was part of the impetus for doing this because ne'er the twain quite met. So
if we had to put a number on it, how many people would qualify for this benefit with the minimum being 7 years of employment?
if you're counting
Anybody that would qualify?
consecutive employment, if it's employment total and then they moved into admin position, I believe 3. If you're talking about,
So this would be, how this is determined is consecutive years with the district in any position.
okay.
Is that what you're saying? That's how the interpretation is
So,
now?
yeah, I'm not looking at it as there's a gap, because like for me, I was here, I wasn't, and I came back. So for that, I have a gap in service, so I wouldn't qualify for this.
Right, but
under
if somebody
this.
went from janitor to principal,
Wow. It could
and they
happen.
worked there 8 years, they would qualify. By the way, it's currently being interpreted?
Current interpretation, yes.
Okay, it's just.
So if someone had been a teacher, became an administrator, if that's consecutive service, then yes.
So Ruth Ellen feels there might be 3 people that would qualify for this.
Currently, that's my understanding.
So, thoughts from the board?
I think we should be consistent, and I'm in favor of extending it. We could use some longevity in administrators.
I would agree, Stan. Tim?
I agree. I don't think
I
it's,
couldn't hear Stan. Could you repeat him?
Stan felt that he was in agreement to doing it, felt that we would like to see some longevity in these positions. And he would be in favor of doing it and being consistent. Trying to summarize as best I could.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to it, but we're going into a budget year that we just cut $770,000. I'd kind of like to know what is the cost and where we're going to pay for it from.
I think right now, with the 3,
It might be
I don't
$1,500.
think it'll be more than 2,000.
Okay, all right. I'll withdraw my concern.
Okay.
Joel?
No, I was just doing the math in my head, if it was 3 people.
Yes, 5 years, 7 to 14 years of service, 15.
I can think of, yeah.
So if there were more than 15 years, it'd be $1,000.
I know one person in the year 15 and up, and one in the 7 to 14. I just didn't know the third, but it's fine.
Okay.
So
And I may be wrong on the 3rd,
So I'll make a motion to accept this recommended change regarding longevity compensation for administrators.
I'll second.
Seconded by Stan. Any other additional discussion? Not hearing.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I know, I have something.
Go ahead.
I think she answered it. I wasn't sure I heard the answer correctly. This is building administrators, SAU administrators, and what else?
So the director, so it would be IT, I'm not sure if you consider SAU, IT, facilities, transportation. If that's the case, I would include them. The directors.
And this is, I've always had an issue with referring to some of those positions as administrators, but I just don't think they are, some of them.
Right, but if you look at the section above, it lists year-round support staff, administrative assistants, bus drivers, SAU business office staff. I guess if we were to add this administrator, who is left? Because the other ones are either by contract.
Then Joel, would you
Right.
prefer that to read administrators and directors?
I would, because,
Okay.
and I guess it's how you're going to define administrator. I mean,
I think in the previous paragraph, you identified everybody. Why not just identify the positions like you did above?
You may need to, but I'll get back to my original, my question just before this is, we have teachers, which is by contract, paras are by contract, custodians are by contract. Who else is left that wouldn't qualify if we made this change? Wouldn't it be everybody?
facilities director,
Well, and that's why I said, do you want to make it administrators and
Right.
directors?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Because I don't think that would say that pretty much cover any full-time staff that was here more than 7 years would start to qualify for this. Everyone else is via contract.
So is that a friendly amendment?
That's fine.
It was Charlie's motion.
Well, I guess I'm not sure on my question.
Okay.
If was anybody else
No.
need to be left out? I mean, that's everybody.
That's the other group.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I would amend my motion to state that administrators and all other full-time staff that is not current, benefit controlled by a contractual bargaining agreement. Do you accept that change, Stan?
Yes.
So
So-
to amend to administrators and all other full-time staff not bound by collective bargaining?
Right. However best to word it. I mean,
Okay.
the essence is, everybody else is on this list that's a full-time person. You know, how you word that.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
I mean, I'd hate to have somebody singled out because they didn't fit the description.
Okay.
Well, the reason I say that is because in your chain of command, you refer to these people as directors, not administrators.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, moving along, what is the next one, Ruth Ellen?
Chain of command, page 21.
21.
And I don't know. So the other piece that would need to change here is that Special Services Director also shares oversight of instructional special education staff with building admin. It's a shared oversight.
So in 21, it is a chart.
Right, so that would be the only piece there that I would amend, is that special education staff reports both to building administrator and to special services director.
And how is that going to be denoted in this graph? Chart.
I would probably move special education case managers, those are the instructional staff, so I would put another line. There's one that goes to building administrator, and I would put one that goes to special services director, which is the purple above it.
Right.
And that would be the only change there.
And where is it going to be in words to define that?
That would be in, well, the chain of command here is specifically listed in regard to a grievance or a concern that's being brought to HR. As far as chain of command, this part doesn't change that. As far as oversight with in regard to evaluation and those pieces, that part would come in under building handbooks and/or CBA down the road.
You might have lost me.
Okay.
I guess I don't have an issue with what you feeling you need to represent in this chart or graph.
It's just, how do those people know that?
Where's the word
Right.
that this is the responsibility and far as handling it? Where is that going to be, in this document or in other documents?
It will be not so much delineated in this document, but it is delineated in just about every case manager's meeting, in other documents that describe here's what goes to Diana and here's what goes to building principal. So in regard to general instruction or duties, it's going to be building principal. In regard to special education, it goes to Diana. And that's,
Okay.
you want to know which document?
No, I just want to be confident that it
Yes.
is addressed and an employee knows
Yes.
where they're supposed to go and who the hell they're responsible for these tasks. And if that's done,
Understood.
I'm okay with it. Because
Yep.
that's why if it's not going to be in this document, I'm just asking a question
Yep.
that is somewhere else.
And that exists now.
Yes, it does.
It's not a change.
It's, as far as where it is written, it will be clarified, because I think
Okay.
what you've brought up is important. It has, that part doesn't change as for what's been done, but I'm going to make sure that it is written at least in 2 other places.
Because especially if it gets into an issue of somebody not doing, or them not doing
You don't want it to be
what
this.
they should have been doing,
Yeah, you can't have that.
or because they were taking instruction from the wrong person regarding this issue.
Right.
Well, so-and-so told me to do this, even though they may not have done it intentionally, they were following direction when they should have been going to this
the other-
person regarding this
correct.
issue.
Correct.
So I mean, because this is
We'll make sure that
important.
gets clarified. It is
Yeah.
important. Agreed.
Especially when you have two people sharing supervisory responsibilities of an employee. That delineation has to be
Very clear.
very clear for that employee to be successful.
Absolutely.
So I don't have an issue with this change. I don't know what the actual change it is or what we're clarifying. but-
It's just saying that a special education case manager could go to a building administrator or could go to the services director, student services director.
Does anyone have any issue with this proposed change?
I'm good.
I think we're all good on that.
Okay. Does that include you, Joel?
I have a question about,
Go
I have
ahead.
a question about something other than that.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I think there's,
Who, me?
yeah,
Okay. The part that's highlighted that says that complaints involving a direct supervisor will report to business administrator, I'll just put out there that I disagree with that. I think that those complaints should go to the superintendent.
And that's fine?
If I'm a special ed case manager and I have some kind of formal complaint about my building administrator, I don't understand why I would go to business administrator who doesn't oversee that staff. The superintendent oversees that staff.
Yep.
So that's just my disagreement with that.
Yep. And I think that makes sense to me too, actually.
I agree with Joel. So that because this area is, where there's multiple people in a supervisory role, there's an issue.
And obviously, if there's a concern with me, it's going to go to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you're gonna make that change
Yes.
also? You okay with that, Tim?
I am, but just going back to what you just said, Ruth Ellen, does it make sense to add in there what you just said as far as a complaint against the superintendent be directed to?
Ruth Ellen?
chairman
It's
of the
on
board?
there.
Can you hear me?
Concerns be directed.
Ruth Ellen, can you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just to let you know, that originally said human resources, and you asked us to change it to make it more clear, and that was the role that the business administrator served for the district. So we can certainly do that, we can change it to superintendent, but the initial intent was to direct those inquiries to human resources or whoever was serving in that capacity, to clarify.
And it does say concerns should be directed first to the if, can't get to human resources, concerns directed to superintendent, then to the school board. And obviously, if an issue is with me, it would go straight to the school board, and I can add that sentence as well, if you'd like that clarified.
I just think it makes,
Maybe if it's from the superintendent, it needs to go to human resources, which is currently the business administrator, so that the board is the second sort of appeal. They would want to take a direct complaint to the board. You've got to try to solve it before it goes to the board, I would think. So you'd have the second appeal there.
True. It does place human resources in a potential quandary, however, but I can see that.
I don't like a subordinate doing an
That's-
internal investigation on somebody that
yeah.
it automatically invites, no matter how much you want to be not biased, it almost invites a bias. I'd rather that notification go to the chair,
Right.
not necessarily the full board,
But to the chair.
but to the chair.
This is regarding,
If
Complaints
there's an
against the
issue with me.
superintendent.
right. Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that needs to go up, not down or sideways,
Yep.
procedurally. I mean, typically, if I'm chair and it's made to me, then I'm going to pass along to every member of the board and say, and put you on notice, this is what has been brought to us. And then we'll have to deal with it accordingly based upon policy and
Right.
not,
I don't have an issue with that. Okay.
so we got 3 changes.
Yep. Is that one motion?
Why don't you read the back what we're going to change?
Okay. We're going to add an arrow from special education case managers to the special services director in the chart.
Yep.
We're going to change the box in yellow from business administrator to superintendent.
Okay,
And we're going to add a sentence that says, in the paragraph above, that any issues with the superintendent should be directed to the chair of the school board.
I'm fine with it. I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded.
We got lots of
We
them.
got seconds.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I gave it to Joel.
Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Joel had it anyways, he was caught by a delay. Give him a second and a half of phone delay.
Okay.
So, what else do we have?
Page 35,
Page 35.
holidays.
Holidays.
And this may not be an issue because it was not cut in the sections that we were looking at for budget. But in the agreements for custodians, for the administrators, for the support staff in their handbook, they are given fast day, which is the Monday of April vacation. And they're given that in lieu of Easter Monday as a holiday. The paras had brought to the board last year that they had not received fast day, but their CBA did say, and any other holiday that is observed by the board. So that was granted to them for this current school year. It was also voted in the budget for next school year and was not cut. And so that still exists.
Last year of the CBA, so it could be renegotiated at the end of it, but unless the board's going to choose to override the previous board's vote and cut it in this year, we can't do anything really about it until we open negotiations next year.
Okay, but Ruth Ellen, you said in their CBA,
In
it
this
says
CBA
any other holiday.
And any other holidays accorded to other bargaining agreement, or observed by the district. And this is observed by the district for those other groups. Administrators are given the day, and we're looking at doing some shuffling around because we're not taking April vacation this year, so we are going to be sending out to staff that is still in effect. They still get the day if they choose to take it on Monday, or if they choose to take it another day that week because we have deliveries that are happening to students on Mondays, we'll look at that as well. But that's for this year. Hopefully, we won't be making deliveries to students on a regular basis moving forward. They will actually be with us. And so, right now, it's in the budget for next year. It wasn't cut, and it was voted that it's part of next year.
So this
may become a non-
Right, this change is to put in writing what has been done for last year and this year.
For this current year and has been voted for next year, yes.
And the current contract expires June of next year?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm good with that.
So leave it as it stands?
Anyone have any discussion to not have it available for the paras?
If I may, putting it in the handbook just makes it, that the agreement was that we agreed to do it this current school year and next school year so that we could then negotiate it with them. So, I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just saying if you vote for it and put it in the handbook, then it's a done deal. We won't negotiate it.
But if they already have it in their contract that they get any other day, and this is a clarification of that, what's the difference? I guess is my question, Joel.
There probably isn't a difference. I don't think there really is. But I'm just saying, whenever you put something in here, unless we're going to revisit this every year and change things, to me it just becomes law, so to speak.
Yeah,
This is where I'll, just respectfully disagree with something Ruth Ellen said earlier, that this isn't policy. But feeling always was that any kind of handbook, whether it be a student handbook with rules and regulations in it or anything that the board passed, really does become policy.
Right,
Okay.
and that's why I get back to my first concern is, I think pay and benefits need to
I'm having
be.
a real hard time hearing people.
I was saying, this gets back to my first thing of pay and benefits should be stripped out of here because they're negotiated differently and qualify for different people. And when you put it in here, you become multiple layers of benefits to keep track of. So, but I don't want to necessarily rewrite this document at this point to strip all that stuff out, but I made my comments, and I'm okay with this recommended change. And I do agree, it's probably putting it for here on forward. But if that's the way it's been interpreted and that's the way it's worded, I'm okay with it. So I'll make a motion to agree with the recommended change to add fast day
For the Paris.
for the paras. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I think we got one left, Ruth Ellen?
Yep. So the last one is on page 39.
Oh, boy.
This one won't be so easy.
Well, at the point that this was written, we looked at, snow days have had some history in the district. And at the point that this was written, snow days were put back in because of proximity to potential bargaining. But we have since gone to a remote environment, and now all of the people who would have been eligible for snow days now have the ability to work remotely. And with that, then the need for a snow day may very well have gone away because they can either choose to work from home, work remotely. They can come in by 10 o'clock if they can do so safely, and that will count as a full shift. Or they can still choose to take a vacation day if they want to just curl up by the fire with a good book and a cup of tea. So it may be more of a moot point now because they all have the ability to do this unless we have a massive power cut.
Well, I'll start out by saying I don't agree with this benefit whatsoever. It's very problematic because you have some people that would get here on time and other people that would choose to take advantage of it and then not make up the hours, so it wouldn't be, it'd be tough to manage, be fair and consistent. They have personal time, they have vacation time. I don't think this benefit is actually even necessary based upon the amount of time that we give employees in personal and vacation. You're talking about 1 or 2 days a year that somebody may show up late and either can make up the hours or take the time. I don't see the need for the policy myself. Just my opinion. And if it's a remote learning, right now, they would be home. But
talking about when this was first put together, our secretaries didn't have the means to work from home. They all have that now because we've had to make the ability for them to be able to do things remotely and maybe not all be in the building at once. So our support staff can or could do if need be.
So how are we going to handle that? If now, instead of somebody coming to work because it's snowing, and we're going to allow them to work remotely from home, where are we handling that in a policy? Based upon our expectations.
That would, again, need to be here if that were going to happen. If you're going to say that it's just, if you can't make it, you can't make it, take the day, then that's certainly an option as well.
Well, you were just throwing out to me that somebody could.
Because now they have that capability, right, which they did not before.
So at this point, we don't have anything in writing to administer that.
Other than what we have in place under emergency rules now.
Right.
That's correct.
So if we were to take this section out, and then when at a later date you wanted to propose a section for somebody being able to work at home, then we could add it in, right?
Yes, we could.
I would prefer to do that, because depending on what the need is,
And we may depending upon how things are going, we may very well need to write that sooner rather than later, because I'm certainly hoping that we're going to be back.
right,
But we could very well be starting the school year under a, divide and scatter.
right.
And if that's the case, then,
Well, I think we're gonna need that sooner or later, just because as this goes on longer,
we're
gonna need some guidelines for people to follow on what is expected of them.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yep.
So, I don't.
We can work on that.
Yeah, I don't think it, yeah. But for
So-
me, I think this can.
so
come out.
take
I
snow
don't know.
days out?
I don't know. Tim?
My other question is, do you refer to a collective bargaining agreement as well? I mean,
There isn't for the people who get this. That's the issue. This would be for support staff, so it would,
it says if an employee elects to work from home, so I'm looking at, is a teacher not an employee?
a teacher would not be getting the snow day option because a teacher makes that day up at the end of the year. So this is only
Okay,
for
what if a teacher says,
certain categories of employees who may still be coming in for a work day. And frankly, moving forward, we may not have snow days for teachers either, because they would be, I don't want to call it blizzard bag, but we may very well be doing remote instruction anytime school is closed physically for weather.
my suggestion is to take the remote out for now. We're in April. It's probably not going to snow till November, hopefully.
Your mouth to God's ear, yes.
We got plenty of time to talk about it and
Yep.
I
And
just,
amend it as we go.
yeah,
I don't have a problem with that. I think
I think, while we're on that amending subject, at what point in time does a handbook get reviewed?
this is the first time in my recollection
But-
we've had a full,
But this is a formalized document.
Right.
So if the board,
It should be
if the
annual.
board approves it tonight, is there something in here that says this will, be reviewed annually, semi-annually, biannually, whatever, so that as this board disappears, as you may disappear, it's a living document that says, hey, once a year, we got to review this, see if there's any changes that need to be.
and
Or
I
not.
think I would put a time limit on it and maybe say if the board is going to review it annually, that it's done in March so that we have it done ahead of contracts.
But that would be just a advisory at the top, because we can't bind other boards to force them to do it.
No, it could be,
Right.
right.
But we
Right.
could say, this should be reviewed annually in March,
Yeah.
and if the board
And if
chooses
they
to not
choose
to
to
do
go,
it or not.
no, we're not doing that, then they
We
can
don't
change
feel
it.
like it, we don't have the time, we think it's good. I'm fine
Well,
with that.
and the review may be, we're fine with it, move it forward.
Right. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that, but I think in this case, if we strike this section, that this needs to be back before us, before the start of the school year, to address a remote or work-at-home policy.
It's the middle of July,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
so I'll make that in a motion to strike it. To strike the ability to work remotely from home.
Well, just strike the snow days section.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second. Any discussion? Joel or Stan?
No.
Not hearing discussion. Oh,
Not right now.
not hearing discussion. All those in favor?
All right.
So we're gonna put this back on the,
Well, I got 1, 2, 3 ayes. Stan?
Stan, aye or nay?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay,
Okay.
one abstention. So you're gonna put this back on scheduled list for July?
Yes.
July
And
is-
I'm going to set myself a deadline of end of June, and then
Yeah.
I'll get it to you guys for the first meeting in
Because I think
July.
it's important that we address this,
Yep.
because it may, like you say, it may be a changing environment where we may have situations that we're going to need to have a policy regarding this.
I think,
Whether it's on a case-by-case basis or it's a school-wide basis.
I think that's a likelihood. Okay.
Because you might have an individual that, that we would need to address it on a case-by-case basis that we don't know of yet.
Right. Okay.
Anything else with this document?
I do, I gotta find the page.
Okay, Tim's got something.
On page 8,
Okay.
Under
Scrolling
num-
back.
under number 4, it references the state,
Your harassment complaint?
no, unlawful possession or sale of a firearm or other dangerous weapon under RSA 159. I think that was on my page 8.
It's on page 8? I don't see it
I
on
don't,
page 8. Oh.
sexual harassment is page 8.
Okay, let me go, I'm sorry, page 12.
Ah, that's close.
Yeah, my SAU math.
Careful. I might resemble that remark.
Okay, go
Number
ahead.
4, it says unlawful possession or sale of a firearm under RSA 159. And then it references the first sentence, any person except recognized law enforcement, possession of a firearm within a safe school zone will be reported. Reported for what? There's nothing under RSA 159 that requires that. There's no violation of law there. The legislature addressed it last year. They declined to give local school boards the authority. There's a bill in the legislature this year, but
Right.
So do we just point to be compliant with the RSA 159?
I would say that employees and students are expected to comply with the Safe School Zone Act and RSA 159. I mean, you can limit your employee. You can't make a blanket statement.
Right. Okay, so students. And remember that this is an employee handbook. So any,
But what I'm saying is, what this to me is if I'm a staff member, this is telling me I've got a duty to report that to law enforcement, and there is no violation of the RSA.
but this is a staff handbook, so it's any employee except recognized law enforcement personnel will be reported.
It says any person.
That's why I'm saying, should person just become employee? Because this is an employee handbook.
Any employee except
I think I'm okay with that, because
Because
you
this
have...
specifically
yeah,
refers to what employees
Yeah.
can and can't do.
So we have we have an existing policy of no carry policy for employees?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that,
Okay.
because you have the administrative authority to do that. The only other question that I'd ask and put out there is, particularly with the legislative bill the School Board Association sponsored, except law enforcement authority or approved by the school board. I mean, do you want it as a dead stop policy? Because the new law says that any person within school grounds, if it prohibits them, can be authorized by the school board. That's the projected language. So do you want to leave it as employee and wait and see what the legislature does, or do you want to allow an exception in
Well,
there?
right now, the exception doesn't exist.
Okay.
And
just
so I
leave-
think when we bring
Alright.
it back in July
I'm
to
good with
review
that.
that other language, if that exception exists at that point, it can be visited.
I would change any person to employee.
Yep. I think that makes sense. And so would we do the same for 5?
5.
Any person, any employee?
Listen,
Let me go up to,
any person who knowingly starts any fire or causes explosion will be reported. No, because
these are reportable acts.
Yep.
So,
yeah, that's a reportable act, yeah.
so if a student starts a fire, that's a reportable act under safe
Right.
school zone that has to be reported.
But even if it's a non-employee.
Under number 4, that would also be student, besides just employee. Because if a student
Right.
is in possession,
So it
that's
should
also
say
reportable.
employee or student.
Student or staff, or whatever you use for an acronym to just encompass employee or student.
Right.
Okay.
Now, just for my knowledge, how long has that been in force? As far as school, no carry for employees? 2 years, 10 years,
It
forever?
was reviewed within the last year, the last time I looked.
No, but is
I'm
that-
looking to see on the policy
I
what
don't know,
the
I was just
adoption date
curious.
is. I don't know the adoption date myself.
The review date was sometime last year.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it earlier.
I was just looking for a historical perspective.
Yep.
And then a question for Tim is, what is a dirk knife?
I
Metals, knuckles, or dirk knife?
think that's the double-edged knife. I'm not positive, but
My understanding is it's got on both sides. It's not like a hunting
Switchblade.
knife that's
Oh,
one
okay.
side, it's
Oh, I see, okay.
like a mini sword.
Blade sharpened on both edges.
Yeah.
But that's, okay. I didn't know if it's something I never heard of it, so. Dirk. No, I'm okay with those changes to say employee or student. Because we could have an employee that's a recognized law enforcement.
right. That's pretty common in some areas where teachers work summer part-time as police officers doing details and whatever.
Yep.
I don't see it necessarily in this district, but I've seen it in other districts.
So do we need a motion on this?
Yes.
I'll make the motion to amend person to include student and employee.
Okay.
To replace person with student or employee?
Yes.
I'll second. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 So is that everything you need? You're gonna give us a final draft?
I can get you a final draft, or do you want to accept it as amended?
I don't know, what's the board's pleasure?
I mean, certainly I'm going to give you a final draft anyway.
What's the board want to do, see the final draft or approve it as amended?
My other,
I'll move to approve it as amended.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Joel seconds. I heard him.
yeah.
For discussion.
So
Go ahead, Tim. Discussion on the motion.
I know there was one area with longevity that was financial. Do we make that effective this school year, next school year?
It's already in effect for this year.
Well,
It's not, because
Oh,
we're,
yeah, longevity.
I mean, are there any other than longevity, which I think you projected at potentially 1,500, are there any other financial?
When is that typically paid out?
it's paid out as,
Is it weekly now?
No, there are no other financial
No.
things other than longevity, and we've already paid out our longevity for this year, so it wouldn't take effect till next year. Next fiscal cycle.
But if we pass a policy tonight and we're in this fiscal year, I think we're passing a policy.
you can say, beginning with the 2021 school year.
I mean, it's only, I guess it's only 1,500, but I think that question's going to come up. Do we want to award that longevity this year, or do we want to start it next year? I'm just kind of putting it out for discussion with the board. If that's the only financial,
I would say next year.
I would agree. I mean, we've already paid it out. We would be making an exception to do it again.
I think it's cleaner to just start next year.
okay, but we got to be clear on that. Is the whole handbook starting next year? Well, we're in, I mean, in theory, we're kind of ending the school year, so does this thing take effect July 1 of this year?
We could certainly,
I almost think that the front cover should say that.
yeah, and that's fine. That was what I was going to say. Typically, it'll say in effect for, whatever school year. So you can say for school year 2021.
Okay.
So I'll make a friendly amendment, Stan. Would you accept that the official start date of this, or effective date would be what, July 1st?
Yes.
Stan, do you accept? Okay. You accept that, Joel?
What did you put on it, July 1?
July 1.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey, what do you
you.
know?
We'll get those changes made, and I will put the amended final draft up in there for you before May 4th, so that you have that.
Okay.
Do we adjourn now?
No. You're about,
Nice try.
you're about halfway, maybe. Next, we have Farmington School District Safety and Health Manual, second read.
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Ooh. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Stan. Was it in our folder?
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
What?
It's FSD employee handbook, nope, sorry, that's the wrong one. I just clicked on the wrong one. Where is it? It was in...
The 16th.
This is second read, so it was under the 13th, I believe.
Ah. That's why I
Or
didn't
was
read
it the
it.
6th? Nope, it was the 6th.
The 6th.
Yeah.
Going back.
Yep, District Health and Safety Plan. Would you like me to bring it forward?
Was there any changes on the first read?
Jana, did you want to speak to that?
Was there any changes?
I
know-
don't believe there were changes between first and second read.
No, they just took it as a first read. No, I don't believe when you voted any changes or asked for any changes.
And there was nothing that we were highlighting because it's essentially a new,
It's prescripted.
yeah, and that too.
Right. It was approved by order.
Yes.
That's always good.
So, yeah. So I'll move to accept it as a final read. Or, no, I'll second. Or do we already do this?
You already did.
You already
At least
did.
I wrote it down.
Motion and seconded. So just, I don't have any discussion, so unless someone else does, we'll move to a vote. Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor is approving as written.
Aye.
Aye. Joel?
Aye. Sorry, aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we have the school year 2021 calendar. We have potentially tabled down here. I think Ruth Ellen had some discussion before about this. We're not ready for this?
Not quite ready. I'm hoping to get a couple more pieces next week from Governor and Commissioner in regard to this so that I can solidify. We're close, but I want to make sure that I don't have one or two pieces go sideways on me because there's been some discussion around start dates and how that might impact. And so I'd like to hold off until the May 4th meeting.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second by Stan. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's tabled to
Thank you.
that meeting. Next we have on the agenda was the Red Schoolhouse.
Yes.
In the packet, Ruth Ellen's provided a couple documents.
Yep.
One was a survey.
One is a survey document, the other is just a quick, what I had found at the time that I had
Right.
put that up, and I have since found some more information. Not a whole lot is necessarily directly pertinent to this. It just talks about the fact that there doesn't seem to be any history of right-of-ways that were given in modern title searches, that there are, and that was back from Norway Plains, and
Right.
there's some documentation from Primex and we don't have anything in writing from Dennis Roseberry.
Right.
It was verbal.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Dennis about it, and I asked him, did he ever give the school, and he said he couldn't find anything. He thought they
Nor
might be.
could I.
And the years that he said was 2010 to 2012. It might have been in that.
It came up in 2010.
Okay.
And I do have documentation from that time too, and then I looked at, it came up again in July of 2015, up through around December of 2015. I think it was mentioned once again in January, and then again it petered out. It was only after that part of discussion as far as where the SAU might move or might not move.
Right.
And it just kind of went away. So, there wasn't a lot as far as title search information. You have the survey there. And I was going to call Randy, but what I've been able to find in written documentation from him, I don't know that having a conversation would have
Right.
shed a whole lot more on there.
I mean,
I can maybe talk a little bit about this.
Go ahead, Stan.
If you look at the map from Norway Plains, the reason we had that done in 15 while it was on the discussion table is because the swimming pool of the people on the right-hand side, you'll notice, crosses over onto our property. And that was the start of why we got this survey in 15, because the pool was on our property and we had to ask them to move it. And they have since taken it down, and once that happened, I think it just sort of, they forgot about it. We talked a little bit about the rights of way, and if I remember correctly, behind the property, there was a road there that the town has like grown in, and they don't maintain it, or it's no longer a road, but the access to the house in the back and the house that doesn't have a driveway, that was from the back street, but it's no longer there, so they started to come through the school house property, and their driveway sort of became that. So I don't think it was necessarily a formal right of way, it just happened.
Right.
And nobody stopped them.
And that's...
Because we weren't using the building and there was no, we marked it at 15, we put a no trespassing sign on it, so that it was clear that kids were playing there in the parking lot, and there was a pool on the property, so we had to have that moved, and we put a do not trespass sign on it, and that was just about the end of it.
Right.
And I did find documentation from the attorney, and also it was reiterated in correspondence from Randy Tatro that a right for that right-of-way would not be established because of historic use, because it was school property. If it had been historic use across private property, that may then have become something that they could have claimed down the road, but because it's across municipal property, it does not go to them, and it quoted the RSA, and I'll go back and find that. I don't have that with me.
So you're saying that if they had, even because it was SAU property and they used that right away, that they wouldn't get a prescriptive easement by using it for the last 20 years?
Correct, because it's across municipal property.
And I believe it has also to do with the fact that there is an access road behind it that they just stopped using, so it wasn't like if we had blocked it off and fenced it off, they couldn't get to their house.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they could from the back.
It just takes
Both houses could.
Right.
The road was maintained, but I believe it might have broken in or whatever, but there was supposed to be a road back there.
Yeah. I mean, some of these issues, they come with the property. We're the current owner right now. I can remember some of this discussion a little bit at the time, and I think it may be something that they want to, if we put this up for bid or auction, I think it's something those landowners might want to consider buying and making their access more permanent, but.
And there was an inquiry about purchasing right-of-way in one of the pieces that I went back to, and it doesn't appear to have been followed up.
Yeah. I think that was in your notes. I mean, I was hoping that Dennis had put some stuff formally in writing, but it really doesn't change my opinion, where I think in the long term, it's not something that we should keep. I don't think I gotta get rid of it tomorrow, but I don't see any reason why we should keep it with the potential cost. But I think we do need to put any potential buyer, no matter what the price is, on notice regarding its condition or our concern for the condition, because I wouldn't want to put it out there and people to walk into it think that they're going to easily do something that's without major renovations or to bring it up to code or so forth. So without that and Dennis didn't furnish the school or anything there, I think we need to have a pretty big disclaimer on it if we were to put it out. So that anybody putting it out thinking that, hey, I'm going to do this and turn it into a sub shop or a single family home or
Hey, good luck.
a library or anything like that. I mean, it's potentially has some significant cost to bring it up to code to get an occupancy permit. And I don't know where the board wants to go from here. We could table it to next year. We could table it to when we're not as busy.
The original question was, should we put it on the state registry historically, because it is historically.
Right, but I'd say if we were gonna keep it, that might make sense. But if we're not gonna keep it, why would we burden the next owner with that expense or requirements they gotta live up to? That's where I kind of...
Because it's a historic building. We want to preserve the history of it, that's the point.
Well, the other thing is to say, does the taxpayer put it before a warrant article? Does the Farmington taxpayer want this SAU to put this on the registry and restore it? Because at this point, you can't put it on the registry without significant improvements, and if you don't do anything, it's just getting worse. So putting on a registry with...
Any improvements to get on the registry, all it needs is a signature on the application. The application is already in approvable form, it just needs to be okayed by the board.
Did you want to see that letter again?
No, I don't need to see it before me. I mean, it's kind of what the board wants to do. I mean, if the board wants to put it on the registry, I'll sign it, but if we don't plan on keeping it, I don't think it's in the best interest for us to keep it, but I'm only one member. So for me, I went and looked at it, I gave the board my opinion. You guys can do whatever you want. Tell me what you want to do. If the board...
Chairman?
Go ahead.
So I think if I just heard you right, so if we do register it, what are we going to start getting hounded to do stuff to it, or can we just register it and it can sit for another year, or
Yeah, it just goes on the list, and
what do we have to do?
you're not doing anything, you're not obligated to do anything at all.
Right.
And you can tell it even if it's on the registry if you want to.
Can we get a legal on
It
that?
doesn't obligate you to do anything, it qualifies you for grant if you want to get grant to fix it. Because it's listed on the state registry, you can't get grants unless it's listed. But if you list it, you don't have to do anything, it just qualifies you for grant and puts it on the list and puts a historic building on the state registry in our town.
So here's a question for you, Stan. If we put it on the registry and then say next year or 2 years we decide to put it up for bid because we don't have any future use for it, and somebody buys it, are they able to basically tear it down and take it off the registry?
Yeah, because it's just, the registry is just a list of buildings that the state considers historic for whatever reason. And you can own it if you want to tear it down because you have no respect for history, then I suppose you can do that. It's your property. It will remove it, it'll get it off the list, for sure. You can take it off the list if you don't want to do it anymore, but it doesn't really tie your hands up to anything. There was no real obligations other than the fact that you're recognizing that you want
Tim?
I have no idea on what the legal ramifications are of historic buildings. I just don't know the law, never dealt with it, whatever. I'd almost like some guidance saying, if we put this on the registry, what, if anything, are our obligations? My second question to Stan, if I may, is, Stan, if we put that building out to bid, would the Historical Society bid on that building?
I have no idea.
Okay.
On the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources site, what are the benefits of listing my property? National Register listings identify historically significant buildings, districts, structures, and sites, and objects, and document their significance. Listings can help build community pride of the history of the community and its built environment. Historic districts can be centers of heritage tourism. Such listings and related documentation can serve as educational tools to help the community understand why these properties are important, and as planning tools to help guide future work in the rehabilitation and stewardship. Listed properties are also identified early in the planning process for federally funded and permitted projects. Finally, listing makes available property owners eligible for grants. Do restrictions come with listing on the National Register? Listing on the National Register alone does not place restrictions on the property owner, nor does it necessarily preserve a property in the future. Contrary to popular belief, listing a property on the National Register will not stop any private, local, or federally funded projects or require review for any privately funded projects with no federal or state involvement. Listing does not require the owner to provide public access to the property. Listing will not restrict the rights of private property owners in use, development, or sale of property, nor will it lead automatically to the creation of a regulated historic district. Listing is an honorific and does not come with restrictions as to what can be done to the property, but its owners. Listing on the Historic Register does not overlay restrictions on a property, including but not limited to the property's color, removal or replacement of features like siding or windows, unless federal licenses, funding, or permits are needed that elicit review and compliance, Section 106.
I guess hearing that, I don't have a problem with having it listed. The bigger problem is going to be, and I think it might be a taxpayer question, of what do we do with the building at that point?
Well, maybe it's a two-pronged approach. Maybe if we put it on, say if the voters put it on the registry, that we put it before the taxpayer next year, do they want us to pour money into this building to renovate it or not, or sell it? I don't have a problem going before the voters, because either way, you might get some money from a grant, but if you get a grant for $25,000, you're going to have to pour some other taxpayer money in to do it. And you might have to put, it's going to have some zeros on the end of it.
No,
And it doesn't say that we have to keep it up if it's listed, and it doesn't say that if we sell it, future property owners have to preserve it. It says, if my property is listed, future owners have to preserve it, right? Wrong. Listing on the National Register is honorific and does not overlay restrictions on the property owner, nor does it mandate preservation of the property in the future. While listing speaks to the importance of the property, if the property's history and attributes are not valued by its current owner, the listing will not stop insensitive changes or demolition.
Right. Go ahead, Tim.
So Stan, if we were to list this on the Historic Register, what do you see the vision from there? I mean, I know you say it opens it up for grants, but who's going to pursue that?
Anybody can pursue it. The Historical Society was interested in trying to preserve it. It doesn't sound like you guys want to preserve it, but we would be trying to help preserve the building. That's why we were looking at it, just because it's one of our older buildings.
No,
Yep,
I understand that, but if we were to vote to list it on the historic register. Step two, without somebody picking up the ball, I mean, do we expect the superintendent to start applying for grants? Is that a Larry job? Is it something the Historical Society's gonna do? Where would that vision start?
See, I would take a different approach and say, if you put it on a registry, now it's on a registry, you go before the voters and ask the voters, do they feel this building that we put on historic registry, that they're willing to fund us rehabbing this so it's usable? If they say yes, then it's our job to get it done. If they say no, we sell it.
Okay.
Simple. Because you can't just not do anything, because it's just going to fall in sooner or later. I mean, it's not going to fall in next year or the year
Right.
after, but it's just going to fall in. So if you don't, it's kind of like, you draw a line in the sand, we're going to do something about it, or we should get rid of it. And if we want to put it on a registry and then ask the voters, I'm okay with it. But you're asking me, do I want to sink taxpayer money into it? And the answer is no. But if the voters say yes, I'll get it done. It's not that big a deal.
Having said that, I have a
What's the board's
sheet
pleasure?
that needs a signature if you're going to do it.
I'll make a motion that we place it on the register with the purpose of creating a warrant article the next deliberative session to get the will of the voters.
Do we have a second? Stan?
I was going to abstain because I'm involved with this, so I'll second for everybody.
Okay, Joel, any discussion?
What was that? Was there a second?
Yeah, there's a second.
So let
Okay,
me
I
make,
didn't hear that, sorry.
can I make sure I've got the motion right? Motion to place on the National Historic Register with a warrant in March of 2021 to determine the will of the voters as to renovation or sale.
With an intent, and you want an intent or you want a formal that it's gotta be? And, because it's your motion that we're going to do it, or the intent that we're gonna look at doing it? It's your motion.
That's why I'm asking for clarification. Are you writing a warrant article in April for
Or you're
March?
saying the intent is to consider writing a warrant article?
I think the intent is to consider writing the warrant article.
Okay.
Joel, any discussion?
No, I just think by putting it on the register, then, and, I could see leaving it open a little bit, because I think you could potentially get, who knows, you could get a group in town that says, oh, it gets a little attention because it's on the registry now, and they approach us with an idea,
Right. Okay, not hearing any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Joel?
He said aye.
Aye.
You sure you want to abstain, Stan?
I do.
I don't think it's a conflict in an administrative proceeding.
Okay, Stan, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to vote yes instead of no.
Thank you.
You owe me a coffee.
Take him up on it, Stan.
Okay.
So shall I pass this down
Yeah,
with a pen?
yeah.
There you go.
What's next?
Stan, can you see?
Should I take a picture for you, Stan?
I will mail that in the morning, Stan.
You can fill in the date and stuff.
Unless you want to hand deliver.
No, I'm working from home, so I'm not going to contract.
Okay, good for you. All
Okay,
right.
next on our agenda, hey, we might be out here for midnight,
Hey,
Don't.
is the deputy treasurer. This is regarding some procedural stuff that we need to do as far as
yes.
nominating.
Yes, let me grab the right folder.
Do we nominate or do we approve?
You approve.
Uh-huh.
She requests. So, this is, actually, I believe it's in. Nope, it's in this one. Sorry. pieces were there. Sorry. Too many pieces. Here we go. So I have a letter from Rachel Bork asking or looking to appoint Angie Cardinal as deputy
So this is,
treasurer.
Angie was elected as...
Angie is elected as treasurer. She would become the treasurer as of July 1.
So this intent is to appoint her as a deputy for her training.
For training and transfer purposes, yes.
Transition.
Yeah, transition. Good
So I'll
word.
make that motion to appoint
Yes.
Angie Cardinal as deputy director until she
Well,
becomes...
to approve her appointment,
Approve her appointment.
yes.
I'll second that for discussion.
Any discussion?
Yeah. My understanding is the treasurer position's been paid to the end of this fiscal year, is that correct? Do we
Or
know?
will be, yes.
Will be or has been?
I don't know if that check has gone out yet. It may have. I have to look.
Okay. So if
Janet
the-
may be able to speak to it, but
if the deputy treasurer comes in on a week that our current treasurer might be away, and I know we're in Corona, but how do we compensate the deputy treasurer?
There is no compensation for the deputy treasurer.
and there hasn't been.
Oh. So it's not, there's no
And
stipend or...
there's no stipend, and I will say that Mrs. Cardinal is aware of that and is fine with it,
Okay.
as she's expressed to me. I don't have that in writing, but she did convey that to me.
Do we know why there's no stipend? And the reason I'm saying this is I just think it's unrealistic to think somebody's going to take on that role as treasurer for a short period of time, come down, sign checks, do whatever they have to do to help fill in that report, and have the treasurer get paid for what the deputy treasurer is doing. It just doesn't.
But they're doing it together. The deputy steps in the unlikely event that the treasurer can't.
But when she starts her term,
When she starts her
She'll
term,
get her stipend.
she will be the treasurer, and
Okay.
she will get the stipend
Okay.
starting for the next fiscal year.
Maybe it's not something for tonight's meeting, but it's just going into the future, when Mrs. Cardinal comes into office, she's obviously going to appoint a deputy, hopefully. And how do we, I'm just wondering
You
how do
mean
you
deputy the
address.
following, and the next year, she's
Right.
not going to stay?
Tonight might not be the time, and it may be the same person, but how do you compensate somebody that if somebody's in the hospital for a
Who's
month
willing to step in?
and they have to take up those deputies, how do you compensate somebody?
I think we'd have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. What is the...
But it's happened.
What is the stipend for that position? Just curious.
Janet, do you have the stipend off the top of your head? I would have to look it up.
I'm sorry, I can't hear the questions very well. You were asking what stipend?
How
What
much
the
is
amount was?
How much is the treasurer's stipend?
Let me, before I quote something, let me pull it up.
Thank you. That's where I was. I thought maybe you were closer to it than I was.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
what was the answer to the question of whether or not it had been paid out for the rest of the school year?
Janet, do you also know whether or not that stipend has been paid for the school year yet?
Yes, it's $1,200 and it has been paid in full to Rachel. She knows that her term is going to go through June 30th.
Okay. Yeah, so it's been paid, and the amount's $1,200.
That's correct.
It has been paid?
Yes.
Is it typical to pay it ahead?
Yes.
It's paid semi-annually in September and March.
When did that change?
Change from what?
Has it always been semi-annual?
As far as I know.
Okay, that's not my knowledge of it.
Well, I don't think so. I thought I remember seeing it on the manifest almost every week.
It's paid it was paid the same way that an employee was paid prior to Jenna's administration.
That's what I thought, okay.
And I don't know.
They have a 7A twice a year schedule. Earlier, didn't they, Jenna?
I'm not sure, I know that the board members are paid that way, and since I've been here, the treasurer has been paid along with that.
And
I don't know what happened to.
well, I just,
Yeah, but our payment that we just received was from previous already had served.
Right.
yeah, I think if the treasurer were to resign tomorrow, we'd have to hire a treasurer or appoint a treasurer and pay them till the end of the year. And I think that
And we won't have the money to pay ahead.
exactly. I think that's a problem.
And so that stipend should probably go at the end of
In
June.
my opinion.
And going back to the deputy treasurer, if it was paid at the same, I think you're bi-weekly, correct?
Yeah.
So if that stipend was paid bi-weekly and we had a deputy treasurer listed in the same way you'd list a substitute, and they came in during 1 week or 2 weeks to do those duties, there's a method of compensating them out of that same line without having to generate
So we,
an additional line.
so we'd almost need to have a time card for them each biweekly pay period.
Or it's a stipend for those.
But we'd have to have some type of record of who is being paid for which.
Yeah,
weeks.
that would be up to the treasurer to say, hey, for this week ending, or, my deputy filled my role, and that's who gets paid. That could be, an email or simplified method of doing it, but I think that needs to be looked at because somewhere it changed.
Okay, so I gotta ask a question now. Is the treasurer not able to fulfill her duties for the next few weeks?
No, the treasurer is doing what she's been doing.
Right.
She's
So
just
the
looking to
deputy
have
is-
Angie
okay.
come in as deputy
Right.
for transition
Okay, so
purposes.
she's gonna be here doing her job?
Yes.
And Angie's gonna be here training and learning the ropes?
Correct.
Okay, I don't have an
Didn't
issue.
you say that the attorney advised you that the year for the treasurer was July 1st through June 30th?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the term. I just don't understand why the payments changed. And if the board, if the prior board changed them, I'm okay with that, but I just don't know where the change happened, because your previous business administrator was paying that in the same way that you paid your employees.
I don't remember that change at all coming to the board level.
So, I'm okay with the appointment. There's no, I'll make a motion did we already approve it?
Didn't we have a motion? Didn't we have a motion?
We
We had a motion and a
I have
second.
a motion and a second to accept
Okay.
Angie Cardinal
Okay,
as...
let's get to the
as-
vote.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we at least got through that.
Okay, all right.
Tim sunk us in the mud.
Yeah, well, I just,
So I could go, if, I don't have an issue either way with how it's paid out, but Tim does make a point that if somebody were to, say, not be able to fulfill the duties and you had to put somebody in for us, that at least you have some funds to compensate that person.
for whatever reason.
Right.
Agreed.
So, I don't know, I guess my thing would be have Ruth Ellen and Jana think about it and come back to us if they feel they need to.
I'm good with that.
Will do.
Moving along to Farmington High School Program of Studies.
I need to wake my computer back up.
Yeah, I gotta go in there.
Yeah.
Who said midnight?
Okay, let me see here. Okay, and I do have, I believe,
Some late-breaking changes you put on the Google Drive.
there was the version that I put up there was the wrong one, so there are two changes in the math section that needed to have happened, and there's a corrected version there, but I also have the summarized changes for you. It says math department edits to POS on it. Liberal arts math was left out. It should not have been. And the four-year mathematics program of study where it shows the progression needs to be corrected as is shown on the bottom of that sheet. So those two edits would need to be made to the math department section. And I apologize for getting the wrong one up there.
Okay. I have a question.
Go ahead.
The program of studies talks about rating of like a 4.0 GPA. Are we still doing that at the high school level, or do we move into a 1.0 type GPA system?
We've not moved to a 1 point yet.
Okay,
We've not moved to that yet.
okay. Secondly, it's a requirement for every year a student to take a math class or a math intensive subject.
That is under Ed Law. That's part of Ed 306. That is under requirements for high school. Students are required to take 4 years of English and a math intensive for each year that they are in high school. It's English each year and four math intensives. So you might have a course that is
Chemistry.
typically isn't a math intensive, but could be. Could be, yes.
So where is that defined under an educational rule, or?
It's under Ed 306. Hang on, I'll get it for
No,
you in
that's
just a
fine.
second. I
I'll
have
look it
the
up
book.
later. I don't want
Okay.
to belate. That's my own kind of edification.
Yep.
My other comment in there is when you talk about VLAX, you talk about more, like VLAX can be used to make up programs or make up classes. Why not also add in there educational enhancement?
Absolutely. And should be.
Okay, because
Yep.
I saw that missing. And I think those were my three major issues with the program.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a question. Going down to the document, there was a section where it talked about course studies at, looking
Can you give me a,
What?
can you give me a page?
Where it was done at the other school we partnered up with. What?
The VOC?
Lakes Region?
Yeah, Lakes Region.
Okay.
Is everything from there on in this available there? Because there's a lot of content behind that, and I'm like, is this all available, what's available at Lakes Region, or does it jump back later? Let me forget which page it's in.
Okay, let me take a look, because I'm not 100% sure what you're looking at.
So, I forget what page it is, maybe I can find it here. Down past music. Lakes Region, so it starts on page 61,
Okay.
Lakes Region Technology Center. And then it goes on, and so all of this course description is at their facility? Or does
Let me keep scrolling and I'll
Collision?
tell you. Yep,
computer networking
Yes.
systems, construction trades,
yes,
culinary arts?
yes.
So all of this is what we have available, graphics design?
Yes,
So all of this stuff is, from here on in, is at their facility?
I'm looking to see if there's a marketing, yes. Multimedia, yes. Nurse assistant, yes. Precision manufacturing, yes. Theater, yes. So, yes,
Okay.
I believe so. Yep,
Yeah.
it's until you get to extracurricular offerings at FHS, then we're back to
Okay.
here, which is page 79, I believe, 78.
Okay, so all of these courses we're currently offering, or going to offer, like one of them was jewelry design, is that what it was?
That's
There's
under,
3 levels of that?
that's under STEM. When you say 3 levels, was
I
that?
think there was like 3, level 1, or 1, 2, and 3.
So students could take it up to those 3 times. There's.
Or 3 different,
It continues to advance. They could do
Right,
different
okay.
projects in each. Yes.
okay. And we're currently offering that here?
Yes.
How long have we been doing that?
At least a couple of years.
What's the attendance of that program?
I can pull that up
Just-
on
no,
Power
you don't
School.
need-
It's one of our STEM classes. It's taught by Shannon McCracken Barber.
Yeah, I just was curious what the
Yeah.
amount of students.
I'd have to look at it. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Advanced jewelry, yeah, so.
They're looking at design, they're looking
Right.
at.
No, it
using-
was interesting, that's why I was asking the question.
Okay.
I guess maybe if you could just furnish me later, some numbers regarding what the participation in some of these programs are, or all of them? I mean.
On every class?
No, just like say you got video production 1, how many students a year taking that?
Okay.
You know, and then production 2 and some of these other courses. And how long have we been offering the CAD class? Just for my own.
It's gone in and out of offerings depending upon, I know we had it when I first came. I think there was a year that we didn't have it. It's back. Part of it is dependent upon the number of students we have requesting, and I believe there was one year that I didn't have someone who could teach it. So,
Well, if you ever need a sub, you can call me.
all right, good to know.
I can teach you things.
Careful.
Careful what I teach them.
Careful what you offer.
No, it's a good, at least you're offering the best, the most popular and competitive software out there today. I didn't know if you're using Autodesk, but you're using SolidWorks, which is the most widely used in industry and design currently. So it's a very good platform for people to learn on because it's the most...
transferable when
It's the most widely used, so that's good.
Especially for 3D printing.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's just some questions, so if you could, I don't know if you could easily pull all that up without making too much work on.
It depends upon what your parameters are. I can give you a ream of paper that will be ugly to look at.
No,
or
I mean,
can-
give me if it's something to put on a spreadsheet or something, I don't know. I don't
Our
need
school
paper.
and spreadsheets don't always get along, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, if something's easy,
Okay,
do what's easy, and then if it's not enough, I'll let you know.
okay.
Anything else, any discussion on this?
The only,
No.
Yeah, I have a couple things.
Go ahead, Stan.
Page 3 and 4 refers to computer education, and we actually should change that to ICT/digital literacy.
Correct, thank you.
This is the correct name of it. And then on page 56, the program is 1 credit of computer, and then parentheses says ITC. We should probably change that to match and make it say 1 credit of ICT/digital literacy.
Okay. What page was the computer ed reference, the first one on, Stan?
3 and 4, where you listed the requirements for the diploma.
Okay, and the other was
In the chart.
56.
And the other one is on the ICT page, on page 56.
Okay, thank you.
So when you brought this to us, Ruth Ellen, it was for us to approve the program, the classes that the kids are going to have offered to them, or just to approve the update of the document? I guess, when do, I guess procedurally, what were you looking for us to do?
This is brought forward annually for board approval.
So we're approving that, yes, we like these classes and we think we should offer them, or yes, we...
At this point, part of what we offer is driven by Ed 306. Part of what we offer is driven by what we have had historic requests for, and also what we have staffing for.
Right.
It is approval of the document to go forward to build a schedule for next year.
Aha. So in essence, we are approving what's going to be offered to the students next year.
In generalities, yes, it doesn't mean that all of these classes would run or can run.
Based upon people wanting to sign up for them or availability of instructors.
Correct.
So I guess that would get back to my other question of, what has been the participation in some of these courses and does it make sense going forward? I guess that would be my question, because not knowing
and part
historical numbers here, does all of this course study make sense?
Not all of these classes will run.
Yeah.
We don't have enough staff to run every class that's here. Part of this is going to be to see what students are signing up or looking to take. We have some courses that run every other year based on what the cycle of availability seems to be, or if we have one teacher who can teach these 7 electives but we're running out of daylight, then half of them may be taught this year and half of them may be taught the next year, so that we have availability as students go through.
So what are the guidelines or thresholds do you use to say we don't have enough interest in this class?
And then it doesn't run?
And it doesn't run.
General threshold is at least 10. However, if it's an upper level course
You're right.
that, for instance, a lab physics class, if I have 9 kids who want to take it, I'm probably going to run it with the 9 and not say, okay, I'm going to close it because I didn't have one more. But 10 is my general threshold.
And that is 10 for one class?
That's 10 for that class.
Okay, so
yes.
that means it's going to be, say, 1 period a day, but 10 students?
Correct.
Not 3 classes, 3, 3, 3?
Right.
Okay.
And as you look at the schedule, if I pull a typical roster for you, you might see for instance, for metals, the class for metalsmithing, jewelry making, it may meet 1 period. She may have 3 sections that are scheduled that period, so you'd see 5 kids in this section, 3 kids in this section,
Okay.
and 4 kids in that section.
Right.
Amalgamated, you've got your...
Because you got 3 different
Right.
levels, but in one class at one time.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Tim?
We can go back to my original question on the mathematics. I'm looking at Education Rule 30627, and under, and I'll read it out so you don't have to look it up. You can look it up if you want. But
Okay.
it says, the mathematics program has to provide opportunities for all students to attain competency in mathematics for each year in which he or she is in high school through graduation to ensure career in college. Then 11 says, such competency may be met by satisfactorily completing a minimum of 4 courses in mathematics or a minimum of 3 courses in one non-mathematical content area course in which mathematical knowledge and skills are embedded. My issue with the way that the program is written is if you have a high-performing student in the curriculum, the high school curriculum is saying that that student has to every year take a math class. If you have an honest student that has...
Could take 3 plus the math intensive.
Well, they could take... I know one student that had their 2 high school maths done in middle school. So now that as they're going into high school, we're telling that student that you've got to repeat those.
No, I wouldn't repeat those. I would say then we're looking at offering above and beyond. Certainly not a repeat of those classes. That's silly.
Okay. But I guess what my question is...
Where does it say that would be an alternative if somebody's already met the qualifications?
If someone has already taken a course previously, then it's incumbent on us to make sure that we are then offering beyond. And so whether that's through Running Start, whether that's through VLAX, if it's not something we offer here, it's making sure that those avenues are available.
So I guess the only issue that I have with the curriculum is I think there should be a comma in a waiver period that says unless waived by guidance or however you want to delegate, you could say the superintendent, I don't care who it is, because you could have a high-performing student that's already had in their freshman year 4 math-intensive classes,
Right.
and they want to attain their associate's degree, and we're holding them back four classes by saying, these 4 classes have to be math, that they may not be able to get their associate's degree. So I think,
And depending upon what they're looking at the associate's degree in, there's a
Right.
good chance there's math intensives that are embedded there.
I agree,
Not
but I
always,
think,
but yes,
I
I
think
see
having that
exactly what you're
waiver
saying.
in there doesn't lock us into the
Right.
rule.
And if someone is deviating from a standard, this piece, if it's whether it's in timing, whether it's an alternative plan, comes through me. And that's already in policy, that alternative plans come through me. And so that, I would say that would as well.
But I think his
It
point.
needs to be stated.
Right, stated, so that people don't say, well, I gotta do it.
Right.
And as a parent, you go,
Well,
you
it's
you
what
look at it,
says.
goes, well, that's what it says.
Yep.
And you go,
Okay.
Or staff says, I don't know.
or they just say, that's what it says. And then,
So,
yeah.
specifically what page are you on, Tim?
Well, I was just in the educational rule that I read you, but I
Okay.
think, I'm going back to when it talks about, let me see if I can find it.
Graduation requirements?
But that's.
No, I think it, right at the beginning.
They have multiple sections of requirements for like high school and then advanced. I don't know if it has to be in multiple areas.
Well, a
different.
standard diploma, if you're looking at graduation requirements,
Yeah, that's what,
and
yeah.
I would say, because you've got, standard diploma, diploma with distinction, and then for the class of 22 and beyond, certainly I can include there, deviation must be approved by the superintendent.
That's fine.
And still has to meet ed law. But if
Right.
the student you have in mind has certainly met that piece, the math intensives are simple enough to make sure that they're included in
Right.
without deviating. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So under graduation requirements.
And I think with that, my vision is at some point, we want to educate parents on what the tools are available to thrive towards that point, because
There's a lot.
there's a lot of
that's
kids
possible.
that have the capability to leave this building with pretty close to an associate's degree, by working pretty hard. And I think as a school district, we need to promote that.
I would absolutely concur with that. As the mom of a kid who graduated early because of those AP credits, it's a savings. It's a savings. And Running Start adds that much more to it.
Anyone else with any discussion on this? Is this something that you want us, that you're looking to get approved tonight, or just move along with changes?
If we could approve it tonight as amended, that would be lovely. I'm not looking to push my luck, and if it means that you, if it means that you want to see it back and take it as a first read tonight,
Next Monday?
well, actually, our next scheduled meeting is May 4th.
Wow. Proposing some time off. Wow.
But I'm also not altering my breathing patterns, so.
So I would agree with that. I'd like a little bit more information about some of the attendance, and I'd like to chew on this a little bit more. but-
Attendance or enrollment?
Enrollment.
Okay,
Enrollment.
just checking, because that's another whole
I'll try
section.
to, I'll try to use the correct terms. It'll take me a couple of years.
That's all right. We'll get you there.
I'll get the hang of it before I'm replaced. Yeah, I'd like to see some of the enrollment in these classes. And it
So
was an
first-
interesting read.
So first read and bring back for May 4?
Yeah, because you did have a couple of changes, right? Just a couple minor ones so far.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
So can we have a motion to accept it as a first read?
I'll motion that.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to the agenda.
We got minutes.
We have student services reports. Anyone have any questions or comments on that?
Question on,
Hello?
Hopefully you can hear me. It's Diana.
Hi,
You
Diana.
should have in your packet, special education and related services go remote. So this is a flyer kind of updating you where we are in regards to services. So everything is kind of moved online. Valley View is doing most of its services via paper packet and then check-in through Class Dojo and phone calls to parents. Those younger students that we can get Chromebooks to have been doing teletherapy, so OT, PT, speech services are being provided that way. PT services being a little more difficult, so we have a smaller number of kids who are engaging in that, but we have been sending home the required gross motor exercises. We are not getting a break on special education timelines, meaning that we still need to hold IEP meetings and evaluation meetings, any of those meetings that we need to have as are governed by IDEA, need to be held in a timely manner, and we still need to get signatures from parents. So a lot of our evaluations for those kids that are in a reevaluation process to see if they continue to qualify for special education services, we're doing that by a file review, which means we go back to the previous set of evaluations, look at those, review what we know from the child's performance over the course of the school year, and then make a determination, usually that the child continues to qualify for special education services. We do note in our, what's called our written prior notice to the parents that should we wish to come back and perform evaluations once we're back in the building, that we're reserving the right to do so. And in some cases, parents very much want to get some updated evaluations, and we're happy to do that. It's just really kind of impossible to get a good read on an academic evaluation trying to do it remotely. It can be tough, especially if it's a younger child. Sustaining attention can be kind of difficult. We are enjoying a lot of the different activities that teachers are coming up with, engagement strategies. I shared with you one online example from Caitlin Ham in the 4th grade, who's managed to kind of use a website for San Diego Zoo as a basis for doing some reading comprehension, and that she was going to have the San Diego Aquarium be a topic for a math lesson, which I thought was really pretty creative on her part. We were able to purchase intervention new programs, not new programs, we've had them before, but they were quite old. I believe they're about 10 years old. But we bought the new corrective reading series, which is really great. We've had some great progress with a number of our students, and again, they've been engaging in groups or their lessons via teleconference, Google Meets. And I showed for you under the intervention work continues kind of the progress of one of our students, improving her rate of reading per minute, which also when we're talking about fluency includes whether or not the student makes errors. So she's doing a really great job getting up to 85 words per minute.
Actually, up to 101. Yeah.
Compensatory services. So that's what we're calling. We're in a kind of in a period of flux, I think, to put it mildly. We're waiting to see what extended player services are going to look like. We discussed today that we are going to push them back by 2 weeks, and we'll be putting out a notice to parents saying that our extended school year services will begin the last 2 weeks of July and then run through the first 2 weeks of August. To give us a little more time to see if maybe we can get into the building, and certainly to give us a little more time just to come up with some preparations and perhaps give staff a little bit of a break before running right back kind of into the classroom. Compensatory services are separate and apart from extended school year services, and that's for those students that even with extended school year services, that summer program, still need more time and more services in order to kind of get back to where we would have expected them to be. Compensatory services is not usually the phrase you would use for this kind of thing, but it's the phrase that come up with the DOE and with the federal regulators. So we'll be looking to offer that to students. We'll think exactly and how that's going to happen. A lot of it's going to, we would like this obviously to occur in a school building as opposed to via remote learning, because we think the face-to-face meeting is the most effective. So we will certainly be offering that. That will be determined based on team meetings for students, and including parents, obviously, at each junction. Executive function group. So we have had some discussions. It's been really great to have a lot of time, a lot of opportunities to meet with the high school staff, which has been really nice for the special education group meetings we've had. And we've been discussing some changes we've noticed regarding some of our older students, so that they've begun to develop a little more independence. I mean, this has been, really a trial for certainly all of us, but certainly for some of our students that have gotten accustomed to having, adults around providing more organizational assistance. And now they're kind of, beginning to find strategies on their own for doing that, and also beginning to make the connection that time management is really a life skill. And they've got to, figure out a way to, kind of make the connection of keeping their work organized and managing their time. And that's been really nice to experience. And so the high school staff was mentioning that as an opportunity for students to see that they can be self-reliant and resourceful. And that our kids certainly are resilient. It's been really great. Anytime we get to see a kid online or get an opportunity to interact, we're also excited because we're all teachers and we all love kids, and so that really thrills us when we can have an opportunity to actually see one of our kids engaging with academics. So our special education meetings are still continuing. We're just doing them virtually. You see in the picture on the second page, on the left-hand side in that banner section, where there's a group of us who came together for the end of an IEP meeting. The parent happened to have joined us via phone, so we will get together via Google Meets. Very much, simply what we're doing right now, and then call the parent, and the parent joins us, and then we've been sending all of our paperwork out by mail with self-addressed stamped envelopes to facilitate parents signing and returning materials. In order to follow the requirements that are dictated us by state law, should a parent not respond to a mailing that we make with a signature, the only way we can ensure the parent has received it and that we can act on whatever we requested them to kind of sign for. So for instance, if we propose an IEP, we're waiting for the signature, 4 weeks go by and the parent still has not responded to us, the only way we can ensure that the parent has received that and that we are safe to say we gave the parent due notice by sending the forms via registered and return receipt, which obviously has a cost associated with it. But that does guarantee us, based on the day that it's sent, 14 days from that time, we can enact the IEP without the parent's consent, and it's called implied consent. However, we've been making every effort, calling, multiple calls, emails. Eleanor Turner, I want to give a shout out to her. She's been doing an amazing job with our preschool students who were just meeting for the first time, some of them, managing to get parents to send in the birth certificates so we can get them, set up appropriately, managing to get the proof of residency, getting the IEP being set up, and, getting everything sent home. So it's been, we're ahead of the game. I think a lot of districts have kind of been expecting that there would be a waiver on a special education timelines, but that is not going to be forthcoming. So we've been pretty insistent that we continue to meet those timelines, and have been doing our level best, and special education teachers have been amazing in that respect. Speaking of special education teachers, we see that social emotional learning is still continuing. We have some special education teachers provide an opportunity for kind of a study break. And we see Michael Corporator in one of his YouTube videos where he was doing his interpretive dance class and was telling kids to join in just for a movement break. They're humorous and enjoyable, and definitely do for spirits. Wanted to give a shout out to those people that have been helping us on a regular basis, just move a lot of things, moving instruments and moving materials and lunches and any kind of food and technology. So our bus drivers and our leaders, thank you so much. I mentioned a few here at the bottom of the page. Drivers Kim Barrell, Tammy Duvall, Lynn Ellis, Kim Mason, Tammy Tufts, and then paraeducators who've been, I've seen regularly, and there may be more of you. I apologize if I didn't get you in here. Christine Bartlett, Lauren DeRose, Ken Leonard, Ruby Pond, Ann Titus, and Kara Wells. Thank you all of them for their announced just today.
Okay.
Getting some materials together for some of my students, so want to thank them all. Any questions I can answer?
I have one question. When you talked about, when you did the registered mailing, and if they didn't respond, you had implied consent because you gave them notice.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage would people that don't respond? Is it a high percentage or a very small percentage?
It's, we try to make it a very small percentage, and I couldn't give you a number off the top of my head because the mailings have been going out, and then I get a few in. So for instance, I got in 3 today. I've probably sent out at least close to 15, but that doesn't include a few I got last week as well. So I wouldn't say it's a high percentage, but we have groups of parents that we know can typically be difficult to get because of the amount of work that they have to do.
Okay.
We have some parents who are first responders and they're working 16-hour shifts at hospitals, and it's just really virtually difficult for them to kind of get in touch with us. So we would make sure that we communicate them any way we can with them any way we can. But it's I would say it's a fairly small percentage of people that just don't respond no matter what we do.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Diana, are you seeing any cost on mailings over and above what you normally would see if school was in session? And if so, do you have a way to track those costs for FEMA?
Yeah, I have been, so I had at first, until I came to the meter down at Henry Wilson, I had been using the meter at Henry Wilson Memorial School, which had just had a special education account, where I could choose that. I've had to do the last few mailings from the SAU office, but we definitely are far above what we would do for mailing.
Okay.
Based on this particular situation, because typically we have parents in the meeting with us and we would sign at the meeting, so we wouldn't need to mail anything home.
Right.
So certainly I would virtually any postage that you see on there this school year is from issues related to COVID-19.
Okay.
And so that's where it would be relatively easy for us to go back and say, okay, how many packets have we sent out times the cost for?
Yep. My second comment was, I think it was the 5th grade class, Mrs. Vashon, on the reading software. Is this a program that can be widely used, or is it kind of like individual seats of that reading program? Because that progress was incredible.
Yeah, so it's actually a textbook series. It's got workbooks, and then student workbooks and student texts attached to it. And what she's doing is she's going online and meeting with students in small groups, and doing work with them. And it's just been, kind of adhering to just using that program with fidelity. Mm-hmm. And kids have kind of really caught on, and we've been really pleased with that. So that's a program we're going to have grades 4 through 8. We purchased it this year. I was talking today with a Bellevue special education group, and we were pinpointing.
Sorry, we're doing the wave. Sorry. Sitting too close, too still.
And we were pinpointing the different types of intervention series that they are using, and then depending on the age level, there are one series per student.
Not
So
sure
we're
if
really working on trying to make this with a corrective reading program thus far.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diana.
Thank you. You're welcome, thank you.
So, moving on to policies?
Yes, I had
Said something else?
can I,
What?
We got minutes.
we have minutes, but also,
We had two other things on the policies. Did you
right,
have something else?
the Nature's Classroom.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, our Nature's Classroom trip this spring has been postponed, and we're working with Nature's Classroom to get refunds back to parents. There is a portion of that down payment that we've made that is non-refundable. They will hold it for us for a trip either next fall or next spring, either whether this group chooses to go in the fall and then we would do another group for the 7th grade in the spring. But knowing that parents' circumstances, for many of them, have changed since this trip was planned, the amount that isn't being returned to us at this point is $1,267. What I would like to do...
But that's going to be credited to another.
It will be credited to another trip. But what I would like to do is cover that as the district to return that to parents at this time so that they get their full reimbursement.
Right, so what you'd like to do is reimburse everybody fully,
Yes,
which will put a deficit of $1,261 or whatever.
yes,
That will be applied to next year.
correct.
Does everyone understand the request? And if they reapply to the trip, at the next trip,
So the deficit will be in the form of a credit that they're going to issue to us, correct?
The deficit right now, yes, we will have a credit with Nature's Classroom
For next
toward
year.
another trip.
Okay.
But I would like to take that money and return it to parents so that they have it now.
Yep, my thought was just going from one fiscal to another, but it's a credit, so it doesn't affect it.
Right, and I know that there are some parents who need it now.
Yep, I'm good with it.
what was the cost per student?
I don't have that in front of me.
Rough
I don't know.
idea? Is it $20, $50, $100? I don't know.
I want to say it's maybe in the 150 range,
Wow,
but I'm not
okay. Yeah.
It's overnights,
Okay,
so it's
yeah.
an extended trip. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, jump in if you're there.
I don't think it's on there.
I don't have that in front of me.
I'll make a motion to refund the parents in full.
Okay, for the district to cover that 1267?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go.
Thank you.
Next in the policies, we had the DJE policy, which is the bidding. And I had put this on, asked Ruth Allen to put this on the agenda, and she sent me something earlier this week, which was, I was chewed on this one for a week or two, and when I spoke to her about, mostly about getting our bids discussed before the board a little sooner so that we could add any input we think is pertinent and, or we'd like to see. And she came up with kind of a pre-bid form to come before us.
Right, which is not, I think I emailed it to you.
Yeah, it's not in the
I
packet.
haven't seen it.
But,
No,
and
because I was waiting for Charlie to give me
right,
feedback.
and I didn't give him feedback. Must have been busy mowing the lawn or something.
I can put that up now if you'd like me to.
No, but I just want to mention it, and if we can table it to the next meeting, I looked at it, I think it's fine. But like I said, my goal is just for us new people is also to be able to give some input and direction in the front, and hopefully, so when it comes to us, it's what we, at least addresses any concerns that we had, and hopefully we can get us, I mean, it may be one step initially, but maybe get us a little bit more working both on the same page, as far as staff and us, what we have as concerns. Because we have different approaches and concerns than maybe previous members, so I think this would help us, and we can just carry it to the next meeting and you can,
Okay, I have uploaded it to.
right, but we
No,
don't
but
need to belabor discussion tonight, but we can carry it forward
But
to
I
the
went
next
ahead,
meeting.
it's uploaded in the
Right.
May 4th folder
And
already.
then everyone, all the other board members can look at it, see, and then have some thoughts on it. You just heard my thoughts, and, maybe we can, somebody else could add something that would improve this consideration going forward.
And just a quick note, DJE is the policy. When you
Right.
put -R, that's the procedural section of the policy. So, and while procedure is typically the purview of the superintendent, those are pieces where it's put in there as this goes hand in glove. And so I labeled it that way because that's kind of where it fits. But again, that was why, rather than trying to put a form as part of policy, because that usually gets
Right.
sticky. So
Yeah.
that's why it's listed as an R. Why, when they decided to do the policy names, they put R as procedure instead of
P?
P. I don't know, but anyway, it's there. So more
So,
alphabet
does
soup.
anyone want to have any discussion on that, or just continue it, and she can provide some, you can look at it and review it next meeting. The next one we tabled from the previous meeting, it was the DFA investment policy. Ruth Ellen, if you went back to the 2013 folder, she had put in some investment policies from other towns. And I had reviewed them, and after reviewing them all, I realized they're all from the same boilerplate document, except for a few changes. And the recent change that we had brought to us, and reviewing our past one, which was on the 6th, the only change that I would make to the proposed one is in the last sentence. And I will read it.
So for those of you who are looking for the proposed one, that was actually on the 6th.
The 6th.
If you're looking to go back to that.
Right. And in a couple of drafts that you sent us, or other towns, the one that you or somebody put in, it may have been a recommendation of legal, really doesn't fit with our document, because it talks about I'm on the wrong one.
Finance committee,
Finance committee.
yes.
Nowhere do
We don't have one.
We don't have one. You would assume that it might be the two people that are entrusted with it, which is the superintendent and the treasurer. So,
But typically, a committee is a subcommittee of the board, which
right.
we aren't.
So in the other ones, the investment policies that you supplied from other districts, I felt appropriate, but if you read that, it also says, can you read that last line?
The board will periodically review the investment policy?
No, the one above that.
Oh, the investment of funds will be left to the discretion of the finance committee without prior approval of the board.
See, aha, and that's different from the previous one. And I wouldn't agree with that. What I, like the one you sent us from Milton, which is pretty the same boilerplate, it says at the end of theirs, the investment of the funds will be left to the discretion of the superintendent and treasurer with final approval of the school board. So for me, I would like to see that sentence you just read to read in
You want me to
functionally.
take the one from Milton?
Well, whether it says the investment of funds is to be completed by the superintendent and treasurer with final approval, or you want to leave it to discretion, but I think changes to the investment, how the money is invested, should come before approval of this board, because at any change of the investment strategy from what we're using now has
So I guess,
benefits and potential liabilities. So as long as we are aware of it and approve it,
And I
then the
guess
board is doing its job.
my question would be, and not to put too fine a point on it, but is there a difference between a change in investment strategy, or if the board has said, you can do this or this, and if we see that something needs to be moved before there's a meeting in 2 weeks, would that be possible if that has been an approved option? Or do you want it to be, if there has to happen, then make it an emergency meeting? And I'm just clarifying for down the road, because frankly, I've never moved anything.
Right, so, right now, we basically probably have a money market, and then we have a checkbook. Do we have any other investments besides that?
Danny, you want to jump in? Are you still there?
That's okay.
Okay.
She may be muted, but...
No, we don't.
Okay, so to answer your question as best I can, Ruth Ellen, if procedurally money is moved back between those funds, that's not really a change in policy. So I don't think that needs to come to me. But
if we were to suddenly decide we're going to buy CDs, we need to come to
you're going to change your investment policy or where the funds are, the working accounts. Right now, you have 2 working accounts, and money is moved back before those accounts as required. I don't see that needs to come to the board. But if the strategy were to change, then this board should approve it. Where we're going to go out and buy gold bonds because somebody told us to. I'm not saying you would do that, but, because it talks about, in here, in the front, it talks about investment strategies and yield, and I just wanted to be sure that if any of these options were considered, that they get board approval as far as functioning different than they are today. That's my intent.
Understood. Yep.
So I think I'm okay with leaving the document the same, except for just changing that section to be, whether you word it, that if the investment...
So investment of funds be left to the discretion of the superintendent and treasurer with final approval from the school board.
Right. But you may want to say, or any change in investment strategies.
Change in investment strategy will be, any change in investment strategy must be approved by the school board.
Yeah. I mean, you already have how you are already operating, but, if something were to need to be changed, where somebody wants to go, say, a little bit more aggressive, this board should approve it. Like saying not so much a money market, but say a money market tied to, say, some 3-month CDs or something like that. That should come before the board.
Can I ask a silly question?
Yeah.
Do we know if there's anything in the treasurer statute that precludes us from doing that? Like the treasurer has statutory duties of the money per se. So I agree with what you're saying, Charlie.
I do. All right.
I agree 100% with what you're saying as far as the approval process, but I'm not sure if the Treasury or the RSA on the treasurer.
It's listed here as 197:23A. I don't know what that RSA says.
I'm looking.
But all I know is what the front part of the document had me concerned initially, and then looking at all the other boilerplate ones, I'm like, well, this is standard boilerplate language from other places, but changes need to be approved by us. And they need to be consistent with that RSA, but...
Let's see. Treasurer shall custody of all monies belonging to the district, shall pay out the same only upon orders of the school board or upon orders of 2 or more members of the school board empowered by the board as a whole to authorize payments. Shall deposit monies in participation units in the public deposit investment pool established pursuant to RSA 383:22 or in federally insured banks chartered under laws of New Hampshire or federal government with a branch within the state, except that funds may be deposited in banks outside the state if such banks pledge to deliver a third-party custodial bank. And then it goes on to tell about what those banks can be. Amount of collected funds on deposit at any one bank shall not at any time exceed the sum of its paid-up capital and surplus. Keep suitable books. Furnish school board with statement of books. Whenever treasurer has in custody an excess of funds which are not immediately needed for the purpose of expenditure, the treasurer shall, with the approval of the school board,
Okay.
invest the same in participation. So
That
you're
answers
good.
my question.
Yep. You're good. I just hadn't read far enough.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know if you want to just revise that and get us to the next meeting, or you need it approved tonight.
I can revise and bring
Yeah.
back? Okay.
Any other discussion on that?
No?
Okay, moving along. Hey, it might be close to the bottom? No,
Minutes.
can't be. So we do have another public participation. If anybody's still hanging on to give us a piece of their mind, speak up. I don't see anybody logged on there. Well, we got some manifest signing, and we've tabled the minutes.
And then you have non-public.
And we have non-public, so we want to jump to the minutes. I'll leave the public portion open while we're doing the minutes. If anybody wants to call in, feel free. Minutes for March 30th, public session.
Make a motion to accept as written.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Did we do
I'll
some
second
of
the
these
discussion.
the
Did we do
last
this one
meeting?
already? No.
For the 30th, we have not. For non-public session 1, we did seal those at the last minute.
It says sealed here.
Yeah, okay, so I do have those here too.
So
But
we
that needs to be, that is not reflected here that they were sealed. So that needs to be amended.
Did we do that the following meeting?
This is the following meeting. No,
Okay.
you're right, no, we did it on the 6th, you're correct.
Right.
Never mind. Okay.
So any discussion on the meeting minutes of March 30th? Not hearing it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next on the,
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public sessions 1 and 2 of March 30th.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Which is for 2 sets of non-public minutes? Not hearing any.
Have we seen the sealed ones? I didn't see the sealed ones.
I have them.
Was he,
That doesn't help me.
I know it doesn't. We can.
Do you want to
maybe
table them
just
and discuss
table
in
and discuss in
non-public?
non-public?
Do you want to do that?
Okay,
So
just do session 2?
So I'll amend my motion to just do non-public session 2 to approve.
I'll second that.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll make a motion to table the non-public session 1 sealed for non-public discussion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And next, meeting minutes of April 6th, public session.
so moved?
I'll second my discussion. Did anyone come up with any changes or amendments? I know these are pretty lengthy.
These are very lengthy.
I think it was a long meeting.
So this was the one where,
Did you have,
this is where we sealed that this needs to be in here. It's actually non-public 5 because we sealed those minutes.
okay.
So that would need to be an amendment
To what, the minutes or
to
the?
to the public minutes because non-public 5 was sealing the non-public 1 from the 30th.
I'll make that motion. That's an amendment. Do you find any other things that need to be changed?
No.
Did you read them all?
Actually.
Okay, so I'll make that motion to make that change.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor to approve as amended?
Aye.
So,
that 3?
yeah, I think we got them all.
Okay.
Next.
And, yeah, and that ceiling was, you and Tim made the motion, and it was 3-0 because we only had,
Joel had dropped.
Joel had dropped off. He was there for non-public 4 and had fallen off
Right.
at non-public 5.
Right.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes, sections 1 through 4, April 6th.
I'll second.
I read them, they were all pretty good. Any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
So at this point, I think we've got everything. Manifest signing, now we've got
There
a
isn't
couple
one.
non-public.
There's no manifest for tonight.
Right, the stuff you want me to sign here.
Well, that's all you. Those are contracts. Joel can enjoy that.
If I had a pen, I'd sign them.
Oh, well, you know what?
You can borrow mine.
There you go.
I didn't go out and wash it
Okay,
for
so
you.
I'll make a motion to go into non-public session in RSA.
I got whatever color you want.
91A, colon 3-2, under nominations and resignations.
I'll second.
Seconded by Joel. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to thank everyone, the staff and members of the public for joining us. We'll be signing off, and have a good night.
Thank you.